they expect the tariffs to somewhat improve in the second half of FY26, and they also believe that the second half of FY26 will price in all the negatives, and we can expect some momentum to pick up in FY27 as well. Lastly, if you look at the analyst recommendations, we have 15 buys, 6 sell calls with a return potential of about 1.8%. So this is how the overall picture is panning out for Hindalco.
Okay, Vansh, thank you so much for bringing us all those details on Hindalco. Kush, quickly, your view on the charts for something like a Hindalco. I mean, fundamental analysts have, an average return potential of around 1.8%, but do charts look constructive?
Yeah, charts look slightly more constructive than that. If you'd asked me some time ago, whether to buy Hindalco, I would have been a little cautious because weekly and daily charts were showing overheated zones. The fall is obviously much bigger than what anyone would have anticipated. But at the current levels, does it become a buy? Yes, it's got a good risk-reward ratio. So I would keep a stop loss at the 760 mark. And, on the upside, you are looking at 810 and about 835 kind of levels, perhaps even this gap that was created, to be filled in weeks to come. So I remain constructive on Hindalco, and this dip could well be a buying opportunity.
Well, buy the dip opportunity coming in for Hindalco. But let's move on to management conversations. Joining us, Parvat Srinivas Reddy, Managing Director at MTAR Tech, joining us on Q2 numbers. And just to put the things in perspective, the revenue saw a downtick of 29% on year-on-year basis. Margins also took a sharp cut, and EBITDA was also down, net profit also being impacted. And decoding these numbers, we are having Mr. Reddy with us. Good afternoon, Mr. Reddy. First of all, I'd like to ask you about the question on the revenue front. There was a significant degrowth coming in. That's roughly 29% year-on-year basis. What's the reason for this revenue? Is there a revenue recognition issue which has happened, or you're expecting some lumpiness in the third quarter to kick in?
Absolutely. We are really not worried about Q2 at all. If you look at Q3 and Q4, we are going to have 2x of sales in the second half of the year. So, in fact, we had given a revenue guidance of 25% year-on-year, which we have revised today to 30 to 35%. So we're looking at close to about 600 crores plus revenues coming in the second half of the year. So the Q2 was aberration, basically because of we had to negotiate and discuss with our customers in terms of tariffs and various other things, which it took some time. And we also had to ensure that we don't compromise on tariffs issue at all. Because we are a technology company and we, in order to maintain our margins as well. So we'll be back on track very comfortably in Q3 and Q4 and even beat the revenue guidance what we had given earlier.
Okay. Mr. Reddy, hi. Mahima also joining in. Just want to get a sense with regards to where your guidance stands. Overall, if we take a look at your first half of numbers, there has been a slight degrowth in terms of where revenue growth stands. But you've changed your guidance to 30 to 35% on higher order inflows. Just want to get a sense as to what is bringing this optimism. First thing, what will be the segments that will drive this key growth? And overall, how will the guidance change across key segments?
So basically, the guidance, improved guidance is coming in from the fuel cell sector, from clean energy, where we have received substantial orders. In fact, our closing order book is 1,296 crores as of Q2. And post Q2, we have received further 480 crores of orders in the last 1 month. So the closing order book for this year, after executing the second half of the year, will be around 2,800 crores, which is the highest in MTAR till date. And that's the reason why I said we are definitely going to maintain our overall margins of 21% with a revenue growth close to about 900 crores, which should be about 30 to 35% revenue guidance. And the growth is coming not only from clean energy, but also from aerospace sectors, where again, we are exporting most of it to United States and other countries. So it took us some time to regroup during the Q2 process of the tariffs and all those issues. But we are back to normal right now, and with additional orders kicking in, which is a proof in the whole stuff that so many of orders we have received in the last 1 month itself is an indication that where we're going to head over the next 2 quarters.
So, Mr. Reddy, then just want to understand in terms of your overall guidance and order book across segments, how will that change? Considering that the outlook for aerospace and defense is with a target of making 100 crore by FY26, how does that shape up?
That is on track. The aerospace is definitely on track. We're doing pretty well with our customers in terms of development of new products and also the volume production as well. And the key driver is also going to be the clean energy in terms of more shipments happening in Q3 and Q4 to United States in spite of the tariffs, without compromising on any kind of margins or any other issues. So I don't think, and all these orders are already received by the company and we are executing it right now. So we should be there around the revenue of about 900 crores plus, as I mentioned earlier, without any issue.
Pretty interesting on that, Mr. Reddy, but let's go a bit specific, especially on the nuclear front. Now, what's the update on the new facility for your civil nuclear projects? Of course, the government has been announcing private sector participation in this sector, and the capex requirement is roughly 1,000 crore or so, which company had earlier announced. Stand me if I'm corrected. Does this stand now, or you'll revise these numbers, because there would be much more capex numbers being announced because of the sheer size of the industry, even if you call it the civil nuclear space. So what would be the overall capex plan for this segment, and what kind of timelines we can expect?
See, the first thing is we have enough capex or capacities in the company. We are dealing with nuclear division for the last 40 years. Now we have enough capex to handle the orders coming in. So coming to your point, we are expecting close to about 500 crores approximately worth of orders this month from the nuclear side of the story, mostly from Kaiga 5 and 6, and another 300 odd crores depending on when the tenders are going to get opened during the course of this year, by another 300 to 350 crores of orders, mostly I would say conservatively 300 crores additional during the course of this year. So that's this kind of orders flowing in has happened for the first time, and it's on the upward trend. And with this, we should also have a good exponential growth in the nuclear division as well.
Understood. Mr. Reddy, correct me if I'm wrong here. Working capital days guidance was at 200 days for FY26. But if we take a look at the presentation, total working capital days have increased to around 274 versus that of 267 in June 25. What has led to that? And is there a coming back from those levels?
Yes, we will be coming back from those levels by end of March, because we have the inventory pile up in order to get into the growth of the next 2 quarters, which are substantial. And also we're looking at the future quarters as well. So it should come down to about 220 days by end of the year.
All right. Mr. Reddy, thank you so much for giving us those insights and, of course, taking out the time and speaking with us at NDTV Profit. That's MTAR Tech's management for you viewers. Let's try to pull up the stock and see as to how it's doing in trade. And, of course, a slightly longer-term perspective chart also, if you can try to pull up the 3 months chart and the 6 months chart to see as to how the counter has done. Down 5.7%, but overall in the past 3 months it's given a return of around 53%. But quickly, your view on MTAR Tech?
Yeah, not a bad setup at all. As you rightly said, the stocks actually zoomed up in the last month or last couple of months. So some profit booking was par for the course. There was some mild negative RSI divergences, which were also suggesting some profit booking around the corner. But I think stock has a good, strong supports at the 22.75 mark from where it's rebounded today as well. So yes, if you do get a decline again closer to those levels, you'd be better off buying. And maybe you could start nibbling into it at these levels also. So all in all, a good setup for MTAR Tech. If I did buy, I'd keep a positional stop at the 21.50 mark.
Okay, all right. Good setup for MTAR Tech is what the charts are indicating. But moving on, the big story that we're tracking today is SBI board approving IPO of SBI Funds Management. The bank will sell 6.3% stake through this IPO. Vishy joins us with more details. Vishy?
So State Bank of India is going to go on this value unlocking spree essentially. It's 6.3% stake that it has in SBI Funds will be sold through the IPO. Alongside that, its partner, the French asset management company Amundi Asset Management, they will also sell about 3.77% stake. At this point in time, analysts are valuing SBI Funds Management at close to 1.2 lakh crore in terms of the overall valuation of the company. SBI Funds Management is a 38-year-old firm with a lot of experience in asset management. It's also a joint venture, as I said earlier, between SBI and Amundi. SBI owns about 61.9%, while Amundi Asset Management owns 33%. 36.36%. The rest is owned by a clutch of other investors. The company is, of course, the second most valued subsidiary of State Bank of India after SBI Life. While the IPO will see about 10% stake being sold to investors, eventually, as a listed company, 25% public float will be a requirement that SEBI has. But of course, for companies that are valued over, with a market cap of over 50,000 crore, they have about 3 to 5 years to actually achieve that 25% number. So as of now, this looks like a great step for State Bank of India to unlock the valuation that it has in its subsidiaries. Just remember that on an SOTP basis or sum of the parts basis, SBI Funds Management contributes about 8% of SBI's value, and that's why it's a significant sort of value unlocking for State Bank of India. Actually, on Tuesday, when the bank announced its quarterly results, we did ask this question to the SBI chairman, C.S. Setty. Let's listen to what Mr. Setty had to say about this. There was a lot of expectation that the mutual fund business will come to the market this year. I'm not sure where you are on that decision-making front. Then there's the insurance company, which is also, at a size where you can think about listing. Any decision, any plans at this point?
These two companies are good candidates for listing from our stable. I think this repeatedly we have said that. We have not decided on the timing, neither on the sequence. I think a lot of speculation goes on that. But definitely we have intention and we have plans to list them, and boards will take appropriate.
Right, so that was C.S. Setty, the chairman of State Bank of India, who spoke about the fact that they didn't have a sequence or a clear timeline. But of course, just a little over 48 hours later, that announcement has come in. I have with me on the phone line Mr. Dinesh Khara, the former chairman of State Bank of India. Mr. Khara, welcome to this conversation. Unlocking value at State Bank of India and improving its valuation in the market was one of your stated agendas as well during your tenure as the chairman of the bank. How are you feeling now that the announcement for the mutual fund business has come in?
Yeah, in fact, as far as mutual fund is concerned, this happens to be the largest mutual fund in the country in terms of AUM. And when it comes to the quality of resources which they have in terms of the investment team, etc., that is also of a very high order. So I would say that it's a welcome step. And also, when it comes to the market which is looking for the quality papers, this will be another quality paper which will be available from the stable of State Bank of India, and maybe the investors can find value in investing this particular scrip. So I think and also when it comes to the joint venture partner Amundi, who are holding significant stake in the company, almost to the extent of about 30% odd. So in fact, for them also it is one of the very important subsidiaries across the globe. So that is something which I can say. So actually rated well by both the parents, SBI as well as Amundi. So I think I'm sure this will be a big value creation for the parents as well as for the investors who can come into this script when it is listed.
Sir, while a lot of people are, part of this entire SBI mutual fund chain, I would say value chain, not a lot of people know a lot about the company itself. If you could just tell us a little bit about the company itself and why this makes it the largest, largest asset management company coming to the market.
See, when it comes to the, as a company, of course, it's not a listed one, but I think when it comes to the AUM, which is actually, it could be somewhere around, I would say it could be around 16, 17 trillion AUM of this company. So that actually speaks volumes in terms of their ability to distribute, their ability to connect with, beyond bank also, they are quite strong in IFA and with the national distributors also. And as I mentioned about the sterling qualities of the investment team, that also goes a long way in terms of creating value for the mutual fund investors who come in through this route. So I would say that it is one of the oldest company when it comes to this. Actually came into existence when the mutual fund industry was opened up for the private sector investment So this was actually next to UTI when this company came into existence. But yes, of course, it has been doing well all these years. And now, of course, the bank has decided to unlock value in its investment and have thought in terms of taking it to market.
Kara, before I let you go, just a quick question on SBI's valuation itself. I mean, you and your successor both have pointed out that it remains a mystery why the market doesn't value State Bank of India for the immense size of its banking business, but also very large subsidiaries that it has developed over many years. Do you want to tell us something, maybe something to the investors out there?
No, well, when it comes to the bank has demonstrated sterling results quarter after quarter for last so many years. So normally this was one of the concerns on the top of the mind of the investors. And when it comes to the quality of the balance sheet, it is of very high order. And when it comes to the growth also, they are actually the flag bearers when it comes to the growth. And if I may say so, they are the bellwether stock when it comes to the banking. And I think the way digital has become one of the major focus for the bank, naturally it is expected by any of the CEOs that it should be priced in line with what the best of the industry players have been priced at. Unfortunately, at times I believe the ownership is something which is there at the mind of the people. But I would say that irrespective of that, I would rather say that the ownership is very much anybody can be owner. When Government of India is the owner, that's actually very big support. And the more important is the bank has established trust in the mind of its customers, in the mind of its investors, which actually goes a long way when it comes to any banking institution. So I think having said that, best of the management, best of the product, very efficient way of operating, adoption of digital, much ahead in terms of technology and also products. So naturally, expectations are that it should be very well received in the market in terms of the valuation multiples. So it was. I think this is something where even I used to comment, and even Mr. Shetty also is also of the view that the bank is not being rewarded by the investors in terms of the multiples. So this is what I would like to mention. And apart from that, it's not merely bank 23,000 plus branches, but also when it comes to the broad basing the product base in terms of life, in terms of AMC, in terms of investment management, in terms of credit card, you name it, the bank and its subsidiaries are present into that domain, which actually means that when it comes to servicing the customers, it's actually a one-stop shop. And naturally, the expectation in terms of valuations are very much there. So hopefully, the investors will see merit in the functioning of the bank and the group, and they'll reward it appropriately in terms of the multiples.
Sure, Mr. Khara. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us about all of this. As always, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. That was Dinesh Khara, the former chairman of State Bank of India, speaking about SBIMF. Back to you, Sharad, on the show.
Well, thanks, Vishy, for that. Interesting commentary from Dinesh Khara. And SBI Mutual Fund also trades in the unlisted market, and there is a spike from 2,500 odd levels. It's trading at right now at 2,700 to 2,800 rupees. And the only peer you could actually judge this company would be UTI AMC, and perhaps they command lesser valuations as compared to their private peers as well. But moving on, regarding valuations, let's continue our conversation, but this is regarding IPOs. Amid concerns over high valuations in recent IPOs, SEBI chairman Tuhin Kanta Pandey, on the sidelines of the 10th Annual Corporate Governance Summit, made it clear that the capital markets regulator will not intervene in the aspect. As we slip into a short break, listen in to what he had to speak about transparency.
ट्रांसपेरेंसी के बारे में ही सेबी सोचता है, हम डिटरमिन नहीं करते वैल्यूएशन क्या ये तो आईज ऑफ द बिहोल्डन है, इन्वेस्टर है। ये स्पेस हम मार्केट में ऐसे इंटरवीन नहीं कर सकते जिसमें हम पुराने सिस्टम में कंट्रोलर ऑफ कैपिटल इश्यूज में ये डिटरमिन करने लग जाएं कि शेयर की कितनी प्राइस होगी। शेयर की प्राइस मार्केट तय करेगी डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द अपॉर्चुनिटीज, और उसमें सब कुछ फ्री है। तो हमारा सेबी का जो मेन रोल है कि उसमें डिस्क्लोजर जो है वो रोबस्ट होने चाहिए। और हमने तो फॉन्ट साइज तक तय किया हुआ है कि कितने में आप फॉन्ट में बताएं और कंपैरेटिव्स दें। तो इंफॉर्मेशन एंड डिस्क्लोजर पे हमारा जोर है, बाकी की डिटर्मिनेशन मार्केट है। सी कैपिटल मार्केट हैज टू डिटर्मिन व्हाट्स द प्राइस इज।
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया, आपके काम के आपके तो नाम में ही प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई।
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 Golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment. One administrator who's doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in the recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much. You're starting golf. We want to thank you.
That's very sweet of you. Thank you.
I think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया, आपके काम के आपके तो नाम में ही प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई।
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
NDTV Good Times is something.
Welcome back. You're watching India Market Close, and it's turning out to be an exciting day of trade, not at the benchmark level, but individual stocks. And you have large cap stocks that are moving 5% either one way or the other.
Yeah, and if you see the contributions to Nifty 50, you can actually see the names are pretty much even, Steven, the ones which are contributing versus the ones which are trying to pull the markets lower. So it's very interesting over there. You see a RIL, Asian Paints, M&M and HDFC. Good names which are contributing to the gains. On the losing end, again, ICICI, Hindalco, Grasim, Eternal. Pretty much even Stevens on that front.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and a couple of these stories, right? You talk about the worst performers, the top 2 losers on the benchmark Nifty 50, and you will see that if you pull up the heat map of the Nifty 50. This is, of course, the contributors based on weightage, but you will see Grasim as well as Hindalco at the bottom of the list, and on top of the list you have, as Hiral pointed out to you, Reliance Industries, 1.5% gains, not stellar gains to say the
contribution
very least.
is just
Contribution
higher.
is fantastic, but look at Asian Paints. When was the last time you saw a 5% up move for Asian Paints? And it's a very interesting story. We'll bring you that in a bull versus bear, as we normally do on this program, but you'll have to wait just a bit for that.
And I think the question on that one was initially we were talking about a Grasim's loss is a Britannia's gain, but now it seems like Grasim's loss is becoming a Asian Paints gain as well, because strategy, competition, all of that comes at play now.
And it also helps that Berger didn't have the best quarter, right? So there's a question of, is that dramatic entry of a new player, is the fight for share, is that actually
and there was a
out?
Nomura upgrade as well on that.
Correct.
And interestingly, Asian Paints has the highest market share in the decorative segment. And the moment we see an urban up move, the biggest beneficiary
Your
would be
festive season
Asian
demand
Paints.
starts playing up.
Astral is one interesting talking point there as well. When you start talking about building materials, and we spoke to the management as well, they were pretty positive about the second half, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, the management has been positive, and I think you spoke to them as well. So I think that entire gamut is playing out really well today. Whether it continues or not is what we have to see.
Let's find out from Kush Bora, kushbora.com, and Mr. G. Chokalingam as well, joining us from Economics Research. Gentlemen, thanks so much for taking the time as always, and good afternoon to you. Kush, I'll come to you first on some of these very big movers, right? Not every day that you see components of the Nifty 50 moving 5% one way or the other. Would you play any of these names though?
Hey, hi Alex. First, very good afternoon. Hello, Mr. Chokalingam. Asian Paints offers a stellar risk-reward ratio. So let's begin with that, right? It's not a bad idea if you want to start playing Asian Paints from a medium to a long-term perspective. It's been a very, very long time coming, especially if you've held on to this at higher levels. But yeah, I mean, if you're deploying money afresh, then yes, there are all signs that, the uptick could well continue. You're seeing high delivery markup on the stock for the last few weeks. The momentum also now building up. I still wouldn't play an Asian Paints as a trading bet, but if I am looking at anywhere from 6 to 12 months or slightly longish horizons, yes, for levels of 2,800, 3,000, definitely stop loss around the 2,400 mark, I would consider Asian Paints right now.
Consider Asian Paints right now. Mr. Chokalingam, welcome to the show, and a pleasure to speak to you as always. Comment in terms of Asian Paints, Hindalco, Reliance Industries. Would you be buying the ones which are moving or the ones which are actually under pressure today? Where would your bets be?
Basically, I won't see the price momentum to buy or sell. I'll go by the fundamentals. So among these three, I would be a buyer of Reliance Industry. Even Asian Paints, from defensive perspective, one can hold or even buy because oil price is still down about 20%, and I think oil price is going to correct a lot. So there could be margin expansion for Asian Paints. Otherwise, I'm not overly bullish on the paint industry. Hindalco, I would stay away. Novel's, there's a pressure on its subsidiary. And not only that, the tariff war is certainly going to correct the global growth, and which in turn will impact industrial metals quite significantly in the next 1 year. So I would avoid Hindalco.
Mr. Chokalingam, we were just having a discussion internally. What's the kind of crude price number that you have in mind that you are expecting to see, because you're already in that 60 to 65 kind of a bracket?
Yeah, it is going to correct at least 10% in the next 6 months period. OPEC has again indicated increasing the oil supply. And secondly, very interestingly, according to the global analyst, The oil intensity in global growth is also declining for the last 10 years quite significantly. Third, the renewable space is really getting a big start across the world. And fourth, the economic slowdown definitely would happen in US and China, because these are the two economies which are going to be impacted by the tariff war. US, the cost will increase, imported cost will increase, that will affect. And China would find it, maintain the growth momentum in the exports, that would also affect its economy. So the two largest economies are expected to slow down growth. Obviously, oil is highly correlated with these two economies. So because of these 4-5 reasons, I expect minimum 10% correction in the oil, because it has already corrected 20%.
Point well made. Reliance Industries close to the high point of the day, up about 1.4%. But what other stocks are buzzing in trade on account of negative and positive earnings? There are quite a few from the broader markets as well. Puneet joining in with the positive and Jasmeet with the negative. Let's start with Puneet on the positive. Puneet, what are the stocks that are buzzing on account of earnings?
Well, Astral is definitely one of them, and you guys did discuss it a bit. Stellar set of earnings from the company, numbers beating estimates at a time. But there has been some kind of difficulty essentially in showing earnings growth, but it's beaten estimates. It's come at the back of volume growth of over 20% in this particular quarter, and with that has come the margin push of over 16.3% that the company has done. What's also interesting is additional triggers going forward will be, the company has mentioned that anti-dumping duty could come as soon as November 12th, because they are anticipating some form of circular coming from the government, and once that comes in, therein comes in the additional kicker in terms of growth in H2 for the company. Management also reaffirmed double-digit volume growth with piping margins of over 16 to 18%, but it's a key stock to watch on our radar. The second one is Redington, and again a stellar quarter for the company, over 29,000 crores in terms of revenue for Redington. It's also interesting that the CISA region, as they call it, which includes Singapore, India as well as Southeast Asia, has seen a stellar growth of over 22%, while the rest of the world has grown 11% for the company. Apple has reaffirmed its top leadership position in their revenue, almost 31% in terms of the overall revenue, and that continues to be a big benefit for Redington as well. Finally, the Gujarat Pipavav is the third one. Results came in yesterday, a very strong set of numbers for the company. Revenue was up 32%, higher bulk as well as higher volume from the OEM revenue share is what they call it, has done very well in this particular quarter, and the expectation is that Q3 will have similar growth as well. In terms of the net profit, it includes a recovery of 43 crores in terms of insurance. That was an additional kicker in terms of profits. But they've also said that the dry bulk volume was up 124% on a YOY basis and should continue forward. So these are the three earnings tracking on the back of positive commentary as well as seen visibly in the numbers as well.
Yeah, you know what, guys, the saying is that the grass is always greener on the other side. Seemingly, you've decided to wear the opposite colors today. One of them is red and one of them is green. And Jasmeet is talking about the underperformers. He should have been wearing red, but he's wearing green. But anyway, Jasmeet, let's go ahead and talk about the stocks that are losing on account of earnings.
Well, Red, starting off with delivery, we see a good growth in the top line and also the broad-based growth. Brokerages have come forward and upgraded the rating on delivery, but the company has reported a loss of 50-odd crores. Well, this loss comes on the back of integration cost, given the management had reported a profit in the previous quarter, and the loss in this particular quarter has led to the negative sentiments on the street. Well, given the integration cost of the new business to occupy 300 crores roughly by the end of FY26. On the other hand, if you look at the express delivery parcel, they saw a volume growth of 32% on the back of festive season, contributing to top line and the bottom line as well. In terms of the PTL segment, they saw a steady growth given the GST impact was minimum in this particular quarter. In terms of management commentary, they expect a healthy H2 going forward and recovery and cost efficiency in terms impacting the bottom and top line. The second one is Solara Active. While the revenue is down, profit turns negative while the margins contract sharply. Well, this comes on the back of delayed deliveries, and delayed deliveries comes on the back of slow volume as one of the plants of management was shut as it was under reconstruction, and that led to the impact on the top line while the costs have remained the same, impacting the bottom line and the margins. If you look at the overall aspect of the management, they continue to focus on high margin segment and cost optimization remains intact. While lastly, I have Medi Assist. While we see the revenue uptake, profits are down sharply, though the EBITDA has grown modestly. the impact on margins are coming on the back of employee costs are nearly up 37%. Being employee costs, the higher expense is something dragging the margins down. In terms of the other aspect of the management, they have adopted.
Just hold on. We have Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman who's speaking at the conclave. Let's quickly listen to what she had to say.
Contribution to GDP through various sectors in which MSMEs are present. And also the labor-intensive and traditional strength-carrying textiles and unique for India, underwhelming exploitation which has happened, the area which gives immense potential for employment, and an area which should have been naturally our strength, tourism. So I will look at these broad-based progress in these areas, achieving across these sectors, and here blending traditional sectors, modern technology, and innovation-based work. So there is definitely too many variables coming into this calculation for economic Atmanirbharta, but that's the beauty of it, and that's where the Samajik Atmanirbharta, which is also one of the pillars about which I will talk, have a overlap. So in all this, and since it's a gathering of SBI's invited guests, the first thing I would emphasize on is financial inclusion. The more number of people who are brought to the formal financial inclusion process, and the more number of people who are going to benefit in their economic activity through banking extensions, the economy is going to be that much more robust. So for that, we need a robust banking and financial ecosystem. That will be my second emphasis. And the third, above all, which exclusively comes to the state government's domain and the central government's domain, is fiscal prudence. So economic Atmanirbharta will be achieved only when we keep all these factors in our mind. So what efforts have gone? Since I started by saying from 2014 itself, there have been a lot of attempts to do the foundational work for the achievement of Vikasit Bharat. You might have heard these statistics before, but I'm just giving you the nuggets. It tells you where consistency in policy, stability in governance, and pursuing every particular money that is going down to the last post, welfare or infrastructure creating, you are looking at taking the money allocated in the budget to the last point. So infrastructure creation has been our major focus in order that our self-reliance really stands on proper footing. So your economic self-reliance is not going to be realizable without adequate and also proper infrastructure. So look at what has happened in the last decade. The capital expenditure allocation has increased nearly 5 times, where it was closer to 2013-14. It was actually at 2.30 lakh crores. And where is it today? 11.21 lakh crores. So that is the proverbial putting the money where the mouth is. We've actually shown it in the last 10 years. And I closely monitor how much actually gets spent much before my RE numbers are fixed. So it is with that seriousness that allocation is followed till the last post where it has to reach. So national highways therefore grew by 60%, and where it was 11.6 kilometers per day in 2014, it has reached 34 kilometers per day in laying of these national highways. So is the metro rail connectivity. 23 cities in India now have metro. Some of them complete and up and running, a few where the work is still on. So from about 250 kilometers, which was in 2014, today India has 1,000 kilometers of metro lines in operation. So if you look at then port capacity, it doubled to 2,762 MMTPAs overall vessel turnaround time, which is very important in terms of trade facilitation, has improved from 93 hours to 49 hours now. So we have undertaken countless path-breaking ease of doing business reforms since 2014. I don't need to remind this August gathering that 1,500 archaic laws have been removed, 45,000 compliances have also been removed. The goods and services tax reforms, new generation GST, is something about which we've spoken severally in the last couple of weeks, essentially focusing on rate reduction, you would think, but I would think rate reduction, yes, but process simplification, classification clarity are also part of this GST next generation reforms. I'm here on the invitation of SBI, so it will be only very proper to say banks have helped in economic Atmanirbharta by aiding financial inclusion and credit creation.
Commentary coming in from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. But on to our important segment, my colleague Somit Sarkar joins in with all the chatter from the dealing room. Somit, what are you picking up? Which stocks are in focus today?
Sharad, if you look at the market, the Nifty might be down just 50-60 odd points, but the pain is much more when it comes to the broader market, and hence not much of an action is what dealers are indicating on the buying side, at least, or not much of action or not much of a buzz in the dealing room is what dealers have indicated. But few stocks that they have highlighted today, firstly it's Mankind Pharma and Lupin. What they are indicating is that there's a pair trade that the large HNIs are taking. They are buying Lupin and selling Mankind Pharma. When it comes to RBL Bank, there was a big block deal that happened by M&M. The demand was quite strong, and among buyers' name, in fact, dealers have indicated that anchor buyers were Aditya Birla and HSBC Mutual Fund for RBL Bank block deal that happened today. For PI Industries, dealers have indicated that there are buy flows on institutional desks. Both foreign and domestic institutions have been buying this counter in trade, and that is one of the reasons why the stock is up 2% despite the broader weakness that we are seeing in markets today. When it comes to Petrod LNG, there are sell flows on large HNI desk is what dealers have indicated in trade today, and this is on the back of expectations of weak Q2 numbers. And when you look at Godrej Properties, there are buy flows seen at lower levels. After the second quarter numbers, if you look at the stock is down in trade, but what dealers are indicating that there is some accumulation that they are seeing because they are expecting the commentary to be quite strong that could come in from Godrej Properties. And lastly, Manappuram Finance was part of a segment on November 4th where we did indicate that there are buy flows on institutional desks and dealers are expecting a rebound. And despite today's weakness in the market, Manappuram Finance is up 3.5% in trade.
Very much, Somit, for that. Manappuram Finance, of course, Khabar has been confirmed as well. But let's look into the earnings, which were earlier Puneet and Jasmeet were discussing, especially Astral. That stock has done well on the earnings front as well. Kush, I needed your views on the technical aspect of Astral as well. The medium-term charts, are they suggesting us another up move coming in? And if somebody is already holding the stock positionally, should the person hold the stock more for an up move?
Oh yeah, you could absolutely continue holding on to this one. The stock was consolidating with a positive bias for the last month and a half. And there was a positive bias on the stock. Today you've got a breakout on the back of very strong volumes. Mild resistances around the 1590, 1600 mark. That was the previous swing high in the mid of June. But I think once that is taken out, the stock could see further upside. So risk reward ratio favorable, positive bias turned into a breakout, momentum building up, volumes also on the higher side. I think you should well continue to hold if you have Astral. On the downside, I would suggest a positional stop near the 1480 mark.
Okay, 1480 is the level that you should be tracking pretty closely for an Astral. In fact, Mr. Chokalingam, any view that you have when it comes to Astral or any of the building material side of the business as well? And to add to that, I want your view on Reddington and Gujarat Pipavav ports, because interesting moves on both these counters on the downside today.
Reddington I am not tracking in the recent time, but Gujarat Pipavav I looked at it. It looks very good, no doubt. One can buy because port business is going to be a perennially growth story in India. As far as Astral is concerned, yes, it's a great company. A lot of impressive growth stories in the past, in the recent past. Even now, profit has continued to grow at 15%. But the only concern is that the trading P is around 80 when the profit growth is around 15%. So I'm not that comfortable in giving a PEG ratio of 5 times to the stock. So therefore, I would suggest only the risk-taking investors may continue to hold the stock.
So that's with Astral as well. In fact, I'll just correct myself. I meant the stocks which are on an upside from here on. A quick question when it comes to stocks which are losing out, which actually, Jasmeet took us through. Delivery is trading under pressure. Solara Active seeing major pressure. Medi Assist as well. The profits are down sharply for this company. To add to that, Home First Finance is down and Greaves Cotton. All of these counters seeing cuts in that range of almost 5 to 10-15%. I think we don't have Mr. Chokalingam, but Kush, what are your views on any of these names which are trading under pressure? Are you seeing a reversal coming on any of these names, or the momentum is on the downside?
For sure, the momentum is on the downside, not just today's moves. And if you look at a Home Finance, Home First and Greaves Cotton, the downtrend did start a couple of sessions ago. I am more keen on the likes of Delivery and Medi Assist for two separate reasons. One is the support zone that Delivery has around the 440 mark. That seems to have been tested today, but the stocks held on to that. So give it one more day, see if it indeed holds above that 440 mark, then it could go sideways and provide an opportunity for accumulation. Medi Assist fairly similar reason, but it's the 200-day moving average support that kicks in, and also buying support at the 505 mark. So both these stocks could still be kept on the radar. I wouldn't suggest a buy immediately, but in a day or two, if these support levels are held, then the stock could perhaps consolidate and start to move up gradually as they were before the fall came in.
Kush, very quick one on IGI. The stock is at the day's highest levels. Would you still be a buyer?
Oh yeah. The momentum, indicators, despite the kind of up move, haven't really gone into overheated territories. This is a good, smart breakout. I would suggest, a hold. But yes, if you do want to buy, then you could consider with a tight stop loss at the 359 mark. And on the upside, the stock has the potential in this momentum to test 374 and 382 as well. So yes, good momentum building up, far from overheated territories. Could still have further upsides to 382 levels.
Further upside can be a potential. But thank you, Kush, so much for joining us on the show. Always a pleasure to speak to you as well. We'll quickly slip into a short break. On the other side, we'll get you a bull versus bear, where Asian Paints is in focus because it's an interesting counter. A lot of external factors which are probably working in its favor as well. Please stay tuned.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment, one administrator who is doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in the recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much, you're starting golf. We want to thank you. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. I think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम क्या आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
Mr. Piyush Goyal's visit to New Zealand. Right now he's in Rotorua.
NDTV Good Times is something that we're supremely excited about.
We just don't want to do live entertainment. We want to create experience.
Welcome back. You're watching India Market Open. Joining us on this side of the break is Amit Goyal, partner and co-founder of Blue Oak Wealth, as well as Dharmesh Kant of Chola Securities. Gentlemen, thanks so much for taking the time. I will come to you in just a bit, but I want you to pay very close attention to this next piece that my colleague Mahima Vachajani has in store for you and our viewers, which is a bull versus bear case on Asian Paints. And the tagline, of course, is "Har ghar kuch kehta hai." But you know the deal with homes in very dense neighborhoods. There's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of speculation, and sometimes when it comes to corporate India, the changes that are taking place in the corner office has a bearing in your neighbor's company as well. So let's talk about what is at stake here for Asian Paints. Mahima, on the one hand, you have changes in the corner office. On the other hand, you have competitors that are not necessarily doing particularly well.
Yeah.
What's the bull versus bear case?
Absolutely. I think the first bull versus bear, Alex has already mentioned, and that's a nice analysis. In fact, what he's just pointed out. But I think largely the kind of moves that we've seen on the counter today is on account of the upgrade that is coming from Nomura and the kind of commentary that they've given in terms of competition, saying that the competition has not hit the way the markets were expected to hit big players like Asian Paints as well as Berger Paints, and also upgraded the counter. To take a look, they've said that fears of disruption didn't play out the way the street was expecting it to be, and that's one of the reasons as to why overall, if we take a look at the kind of market share loss also that Asian Paints has seen in the past 3 to 4 odd quarter has not been as much. But on the other side, management has still gone ahead and said that competition is intensifying. This is something that they said in the last con call. This con call, we'll have to wait and watch out for how the commentary fares in terms of where competition stands. Moving on. In terms of the overall volume recovery, that has taken place for Asian Paints in Q1 was quite significant after 3 quarters of a negative volume, or in fact a volume degrowth. They saw a volume uptick of around 3% odd. That was a positive note. This quarter we'll have to see as to how further volume recovers. But on the other side, the net profit was down by around 6% odd at that 1100 odd crores. So this quarter will be interesting to watch out for the kind of trajectory in terms of profit growth as well. Moving on to the segment-wise performance, I think what drove the kind of overall performance was the double-digit growth in auto and in general industrial segment. Home decorative category did see a degrowth and still continues to be under pressure. Now, the brokerage calls that I was talking about, Nomura has gone ahead and said that from here competition is gradually easing and they're expecting Asian Paints to revert to early to mid-teens of EPS growth going forward. But on the other side, Morgan Stanley, which is the most bearish on Asian Paints, has said that it believes that the competition is here to sustain. So two starking views from different brokerages here. Of course, this is a slightly older note as well. We have to see if Morgan Stanley has also kind of changes its view on Asian Paints or not. But in terms of where the target prices stands for both of these counters, Nomura has upgraded it to buy from a hold and has given a target price of 3,100, which kind of pencils in a growth of around 21% odd from here on. And for Morgan Stanley, it has given an underweight rating with the least target price amongst all the brokerages at 1909. So this is the overall view of how the bull versus bear case stacks up for Asian Paints. Of course, as Alex was mentioning, a slight sentimental move also coming in because of Grasim CEO resigning, and probably could be slightly beneficial for where Asian Paints stands.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that. Dharmesh, so what do you make of this? First to you, on the fundamentals, Asian Paints, a lot of people had patience with this particular counter. To their detriment, they waited for years for it to give them something and they have not been rewarded. But at this moment, do you think that it's a good opportunity to get in?
Yeah, good afternoon, Alex. I don't think so, because I think still lots to go, and whether it's comma or semicolon for the competition, time will tell. But the competition is here to stay, and I heard the management of Asian Paints in one of the channels. He was saying that volume growth will be high, value growth will be low. So that statement itself justifies the fact that competition is not allowing you to have the pricing power in place. At the same time, what you are paying for, you are paying 60, 70 times or 50 times multiple on all of these paint companies for a growth where we are talking about mid-teens. That's the best case scenario. Otherwise, if you look at last 10 years trajectory, the CAGR has been 10-11% for Asian Paints only. They were the leaders. That time the competition was low, so this entire story played out. But now it's a commodity, it's a product company. I don't think so. You're going to have a wealth creation kind of a journey, which it did have, a couple of years back for 10 years. But it's, from here on, the valuation and earnings catch-up will play out. You can have a pop-up of 5-10%, that can still be there. But to my mind, it's just a pop-up play. If you want to play it for pop-up, not for a trending buy.
Play for a pop-up. Stay with us. In fact, Amit, I'll come to you, but before that, let's just quickly look at the markets. 25,500 is broken on the downside right now, so markets are near the day's lowest levels, or I would say at the day's lowest levels, cuts of 0.4% coming in there. Let's just quickly pull up Bank Nifty. Let's see the private and the PSU banking space, and in terms of individual sectors as well. You still have the likes of a Grasim, which continue to be the top loser, followed by a Hindalco. You have Adani Enterprises, Power Grid, Eternal, Aisha, BEL. These are the ones which are pulling lower. But Asian Paints, Reliance Industries, M&M, these three counters along with the Interglobe Aviation are holding on to today's gains as well. If we can just have the contributor plate, and then we look at the sectoral heat map to see which are the sectors which are actually putting pressure. Look at that. ICICI, Grasim, Hindalco. I think the gains that were coming in from Reliance Industries, Asian Paints, M&M and TCS, they have somewhere remained stable, but the cuts in terms of the other names like ICICI, Grasim, Hindalco, Eternal and the others are the ones which have deepened further, and that's the reason why you're seeing that 173 contribution coming in on Nifty 50. Now it's only IT which is the top losing sector gainer today. Auto was one of the gaining sectors along with IT. That has also turned slightly into the negative, but it's on the borderline. The key over here is the pressure that has continued. Now, closure in terms of today's session probably will be pretty on the downside. So 25,500, but it's again trying to make that mark slightly upwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we get Amit Goyal into this conversation? Amit, at the benchmark level then, because Sensex expiry, some adjustments likely on account of that as well, and we're at the low point of the day. How would you trade this right now?
Hi, good afternoon, Alex, and thanks for having me here. See, Nifty, if I look at the derivatives data and the price action data, they kind of give me little contrasting views because from a derivative standpoint, 26,000 and 25,000 happen to be a broader range on Nifty. Generally, we move in a 500-point range. However, this time around, there is a broader breadth of the range of about 1,000 points. And if you look at the trend, while the secular trend remains up, and we are at a pivotal point of 25,448, which was the previous pivot from where market did give a nice breakout. So I'm expecting an arrest in the current down move around the current levels and hoping for a reversal from here from Nifty's standpoint. However, the recent trend is down, is weak, and any fresh longs should be with when you see evidence of a reversal on the broad benchmark.
You know what's interesting today though, Sharad and Hiral, is that in the recent past when you've seen declines, you've seen the broader markets keep pace with the benchmark. But today the selling, the selling at the broader end of the spectrum is significantly more. Take a look at the mid-cap index, is down 1% or so. The Nifty Next 50, which is something that is also in the large cap space, is down 1.3%. And the small cap index is currently down about 1.5% at the low point of the day. Let's also pull up the market breadth because that will likely give you the picture and will likely be at the widest point. There you go. It's borne out. So it's been wide through the session, but we're at the widest point at this moment.
And to add to this, let's just pull up a 5-day chart of Nifty 50 and a 5-day chart of Bank Nifty, or even a 1 month. And that will tell you the story of what's actually happened. There you go. I mean, you know, in between there were those bouts of buying that was coming in, and that has now created that pressure right now in terms of selling. So there is some bit of profit booking that is coming in. A couple of points which are still hurting is the US-India trade deal. Now, the delay that is happening on that front is really keeping investors pretty jittery. So what's happening is the moment markets move up, at higher levels, they are looking at selling. And the moment you see a down point, that's when that little buying comes in. So it's an absolute seesaw ride that's happening between markets right now.
And even the FI selling for 5 straight sessions in cash markets, nothing moving much in the shorts, and an exclusive dollar index at 100. That's also a reason why we are seeing, you know, emerging markets not being so attractive, especially for India.
And I think that's going to be an interesting piece that we need to do in terms of the dollar at 100.
Yes.
We're at levels on the benchmark that we last saw on the 16th, not 16th, maybe 16th of October. 16th is in fact the number. But you know, one of the constituents of the benchmark, guys, that has dropped quite considerably, and it struck me because I've seen it lose more often than not over the last few sessions, is Eternal. And let's pull up the chart if we can. It's now down about 2.3% or thereabouts. But if you pull up the 1 month chart approximately, you will see what I'm talking about. Because from the high point, which incidentally was on the 15th or the 16th of October, it's down about 13-14%. The question to you, Amit, is where does that stop? Is this presenting an opportunity to get in around those 300 levels, or would you wait for further downside?
So on Eternal, the actual fall has been about 16.5%, 17%. And the near-term support that I see on this chart, though I was a little bullish on this chart a little while ago, but it has broken through my support levels and is now trending down. So any fresh longs in Eternal should be around the 290, 300 levels and not before that, because that is where the technical support stands. And only at signs of reversals should we look at taking fresh longs around 280, 290 levels, not before that.
Interesting. It must be said, though, that the drop from the middle of October was from very close to the all-time highs for Eternal. And you cannot argue that the stock is not richly valued. In fact, let's compare the move over the last 1 month between Swiggy and Eternal if we can, while we go to Dharmesh Kant on his opinion on whether or not, and both have moved more or less in tandem. There you go. It's quite interesting. So would you buy into one or the other at these drops? These are the opportunities that people look for, don't they, Dharmesh?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, but I won't be buying in either of them. See, Alex, what happens normally with this new age concept theory is as long as your revenue is building up and you don't have a profitability, people are willing to give it a price based on sales 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, based on the sales trajectory growth. Once you start delivering the profit, maybe 6 quarters, 7 quarters down the line, then the realization, downsing, what's the actual and the realistic run rate of profitability growth would be. And then you have this valuation, creeping in. It was a very classical play with DMart a few years back. So same thing happened, and since 21, the stocks are down 20-25% from their top, and still it has not taken out. I think Eternal is now walking into that zone after giving profit for say 3-4 quarters, and the best margin which you can do in this kind of a segment, which Amazon does in US, is 4 to 5%, and then you have the math time. So to my mind, there can be trading up and down plays, but Eternal more or less is done with his upside trajectory.
Okay. Fair point. Let's talk about Life Insurance Corporation of India, and they're going to release the numbers later today. It's one to watch, right? Because you have the implications of GST 2.0 to factor in. You have various other things that you're looking at. But Vansh joining in to talk about what the key numbers are. Vansh, take it away. What would you be looking forward to?
Well, thank you for that, Alex. As you rightly mentioned, numbers are due post-market today. If we look at some of the key expectations from the numbers, if we look at the annual premium equivalent, that is the reflection of the top line growth. It is expected to fall by 1% at 16,300 odd crores versus 16,465 crores. If we look at the VNB, that is the value of new business. Now, this is a reflection of the profitability of the company. This is expected to fall by 2.5% at 2,800 odd crores versus 2,941 odd crores. And also, if we look at the VNB margin, that reflects the profit margin for the insurance companies, it is expected to fall 26 basis points at 17.6% versus 17.86%. And lastly, if we look at the net profit, it is expected to rise by 4.8% at 8,100 odd crores. If we talk about some of the key factors to watch out for, the annual premium equivalent contribution from the non-par segment and the management commentary on the VNB margins will be some of the key important factors to watch out for.
That's with regards to where LIC goes. Amit, any trade when it comes to LIC or even for that matter, Cummins and ABB, because all the three will be reporting numbers post-market hours. Ahead of that, any momentum play?
No, I don't see any momentum in LIC. In fact, it has been after that initial pop in the end of May, it has been lackluster and given up all the gains and has been sideways. So LIC, I do not really see any pop happening there. Which were the other ones you said? ABB.
ABB and Cummins.
Okay. I do have a view on Reliance and Maruti if that interests you. But in the meantime, I'm pulling up the chart of ABB.
No, we've already spoken about Reliance Industries, but ABB and Cummins would help.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull my chart up.
In the meanwhile, let me go to Sharad, who is here to tell you about the significance of the dollar index moving back above 100 for the first time in nearly 6 months. This is actually an interesting point because you've seen trends of de-dollarization, you've seen various other factors that have led to the weakness in the dollar, but it's actually been moving the other way in the recent past. Could there be more pain for emerging markets because a stronger dollar would lead to flows towards the US? Sharad joining in. Sharad, what are the key data points that you're looking at?
Well, it's very interesting, Alex, and over the last 4 to 5 odd months, we as anchors actually forgot this entire, you could say, this index. Earlier we used to track about it a lot, but there was a de-dollarization and change in how Indian rupee was functioning against the dollar. But now let's just bring back the definition back and why it's important. The index has reclaimed the 100 mark almost 6 months, and this is the first time it has touched the 100 level marks since June 20th. Now let's just decode it simply. Like, this is a tool to access the strength of a dollar with other major currencies. But what is actually dollar index? What it is comprising of? We did some analysis, and overall look at the currency weightage where it stands. 58% is skewed towards euro. Yen, pound, they are there in the mid-teens, you could say 12 to 14 odd %, followed by Canadian dollar, Swedish krona and Swiss franc. This looks theoretical, but it's very important because this helps a lot of fund managers, especially in the emerging markets, to track where the flows go with the currencies as well. Now, why this is important, let's just put that portion out as well. When this index touches the above 100 levels mark, that means dollar has started to strengthen. This goes by the definition. What's the impact on the emerging markets? That's what me and Hiral had discussed earlier. This could trigger the outflow from the emerging markets, and when we speak about emerging markets, India also stands here. But already we are seeing the FIs in the cash market for India. We have taken the numbers in rupees crore. They have not been very strong for India, which has been a significant sell-off in September, August and July. August there was recoveries happening, but still it ended in the close, and November is just the start of it. For the last 5 trading sessions, we have seen sell-off continuing in the FI cash market segment. But now let's look at how the dollar return has been there if you compare it to the major currencies. And you see Russian ruble, that's up 40% dollar returns. Brazil real, that's 14%. China's renminbi in the positive 2%. But look at Indian rupee, that is still in the negative 3.5% downtick seen when it comes to the dollar moves as well. So this is the entire picture for the dollar index. And of course, Dharmesh, I would also like to ask you this. Okay, Dharmesh is not there with us. Amit, your technical chart as an analysis, dollar index at 100, we used to talk a lot earlier on this segment, but now is it back? And if yes, how important is it to look at it, and what's the viability for this indicator as a technical chartist? If you could just help us out with that.
Sure. Dollar above 100 would be a red flag for all of us. We are, though it had, as you rightly pointed out, that corrected and has been falling and has also tested the lows of about 96. Right now, close to 100. So what I'm looking at on a technical chart is that it is close to the flip zone of a prior support, now turned into a resistance. So I hope it does not, gather further strength, which will be detrimental for the emerging markets. So I do see that there is some bit of resistance at around 100 levels, and it remains to be seen in the next few trading sessions how this will play out. If there is a breakout over here, and that could, exacerbate the downward momentum in our markets. But if it corrects from here, that would be some good news for our ears.
Yeah, if it corrects, of course, if it moves the other way. But it is nearly closing time, and the question therefore arises, Amit, do you have any buy today, sell tomorrow calls, or the other way, sell today, buy tomorrow?
Yeah, I generally do not like to give sell calls, so I'll refrain from doing that. Already the market has fallen a lot, and most of our retail traders do make money when the markets go up. I'm trying to give a technical reversal call here on Maruti. If you look at the Maruti chart, while it has been correcting and it has corrected since the highs by about 8%, the kind of price action that I'm seeing is a little healthy today, with a technical bullish hammer sort of a formation at the support levels. And if you look at the RSI also around 35, seems to give me some bit of hope that there is some strength, there is some reversal, there's some buying happening here. The volumes are also supportive on this front. So I would want to bet on Maruti with a strict stop loss if it breaks today's low of 15,200 for eventual targets of about 16,000. So if this reversal picks up, one can convert the BTST into a longer or a sort of a swing trade and hold for targets of about 16,000.
Okay, so that's with regards to Maruti Suzuki. Amit, any view when it comes to CCL products? A strong set of numbers that have reported, the stock on a tear right now. Ola is another one. The commentary from the management is absolutely interesting that's coming in there, but the numbers are pretty weak. The stock down nearly 5%. Two divergent candidates right now. What would you do?
So CCL, the kind of sector, the kind of market cap this stock is, and the kind of lackluster returns it has given in the last few months, and this sudden pop on account of results, I'll take it with a pinch of salt. I will not want to join the rally right now because, as you see on the charts also, there has been a lot of profit booking from 1,000 levels, and it is now down by about 30 points from there. Even technically, it is overheated territory. So, I will want to see continued strength in this and probably look to enter only if it crosses 1,000 levels and sustains this momentum. On the other hand, Ola, I mean, this is the management commentary has always been very interesting, right? However, the stock does not perform as per the commentary. And it has faltered to deceive again. From the highs of 70, it is now back to 47 and sub 50 levels. This is a stock one would avoid. Probably it's a good buy around the lows of, the prior lows of about 40 levels for maybe a reversal play. But right now it is really in the middle of nowhere. I would not be trading this stock. It's something that I would avoid for the time being.
Well, pretty interesting view coming in for Ola Electric from Amit. Thank you very much, Amit, for taking out your time and giving your views at NDTV Profit. But let's move on to the closing. We saw significant selling coming across the counters, and today, of course, Sensex expiry also, and not so much fall as compared to Nifty, and that's the reason because of the volatility in the counter. But for a certain moment, it fell below the 25,500 mark. But now it has slightly gone up, so that will be very important, the closing levels to look at. But now let's look at the heat map for the Nifty index, how it's actually panning out. Largely Asian Paints and Reliance and M&M holding top gains here, but the sea of red over here, especially Eternal Power Grid, Hindalco and Grasim. These are the stocks which we are seeing massive selling happening, and Hindalco is expected to close near this day's lows as well. Let's pull up the sectoral heat map as well as how things are actually panning out. There's nothing much happening. It's a sea of red here, especially defense and metal counters. But the IT, that's the only green sector in the pack which you'll be watching out for. Broader indices, let's pull out the advanced decline ratio. Not much support coming in between the broader indices. If you could just show the advances decline ratio, that's clearly going in the favor of bears, and you see now the ratio stands almost 1:4. Let's pull up the BSE contribution chart to understand where the action is happening in the broader indices. Largely earnings based move coming in Redington, CCL Products, and even Astral and Gujarat Pipavav, while Asian Paints remains its leadership status. Delivery, AB Fashion, Blue Star, Sterlite and Sheela Foam also reacting on largely earnings. But if you look at the day today, there has been a big sell-off happening in the day, and no major attempt of recovery was made as the broader indices have started bleeding. But now let's look at what's there for tomorrow. What's the preparations like for tomorrow, and the earnings season still continues. Eye on the globe. Monetary policies would be there, something which we'll be watching out for. Jobless claims, US, that is something the reactions would happen, especially with Fed having a hawkish tone. IPO opening of Pine Labs, the fintech company, that's where the primary market action would be going ahead. And earnings post-market, you see the larger names coming in, especially the capital goods players, Cummins India, ABB India, earlier L&T came out with their numbers as well. So certain pharma counters and LIC and Apollo Hospitals also make it to the list. So we can see important earnings are there. And Bajaj Auto, Divis Labs, Hindalco, Power Finance, even Trent. So these earnings are also there, which we will be tracking them. So that's it for the India market close. But do stay tuned. We have got a very interesting show of Market Express by Himangshi. And that's it for this show. Stay tuned to NDTV Profit.
Mr. Piyush Goyal's visit to New Zealand. Right now he's in Rotorua.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम क्या आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment, one administrator who is doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in the recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much. You're starting golf. We want to thank. Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. I think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम क्या आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Market Express and I'm your host Himakshi Bahuguna. Now let's get straight into the show and let's see how the markets have fared today. So it was a terrible day on the Lal Street to say the least. The Nifty briefly slipped below 25,500, at the end, and Sensex also shed over 100 points. Advanced decline ratio was also tilted in the favor of declines. Now, if we talk about the sectors, so that have ended the session in red, with IT and auto remaining resilient. Other than these pockets of resilience, media, metal and defense were the top laggards, down anywhere between 2 to 2.5%. The Board of State Bank of India has officially given the green light for the initial public offering of its highly profitable asset management arm, SBI Funds Management. So this move is expected to be one of the largest IPOs in the financial sector, capitalizing on the booming Indian mutual fund industry. Analysts are already pegging the valuation of SBI Funds Management at a staggering 1.2 lakh crore rupees. So that's a significant number in the current market. Now let's have a look at the key earnings today. So Astral's Q2 results were driven by strong underlying business momentum, particularly in its core segments. So plumbing sales volumes has soared over 20% year on year, driving double-digit revenue growth. Crucially, the company has demonstrated operational resilience by successfully maintaining its margins, holding them steady at approximately 16.3% despite significant volatility in the PVC raw material prices throughout the quarter. So looking ahead, management has reaffirmed its double-digit volume growth guidance for the full year. Investors will be closely watching a key regulatory trigger, the potential implementation of the anti-dumping duty on the PVC imports, which is expected to further stabilize the raw material costs and also provide a considerable boost to the domestic players like Astral. Next up, we have Gujarat Pipavav Port or GPPL. So shares have surged more than 5% following a robust set of second quarter earnings. So the company has posted a 32% year-on-year jump in the total revenue, and this is driven aggressively by the expansion in the cargo handling. So the standout metric here is the dry bulk segment, which saw volume spike by a massive 124% compared to last year. So growth was further supported by higher throughput from bulk cargo and also increased volumes from the original equipment manufacturers or the OEMs. And while the operating performance was strong, what you should also keep in mind is that the net profit figure includes a one-time gain, which is an insurance recovery of 43 crore rupees. So overall, the quarter underscores, the port operators increasing utilization and also its ability to capture higher cargo traffic across the key segments. Next up, we have Redington, which has also reported its highest ever quarterly revenue, clocking in at 29,118 crore rupees for the second quarter, and this is representing a 17% year-on-year growth. So this record performance was fueled by disproportionate growth in the key, CISA region covering Singapore, India and South Asia. So where revenue has jumped by 22%, significantly outpacing the 11% growth seen in the rest of the world. This success actually means that the CISA segment now accounts for a commanding 66% of the company's half-year EBITDA share. So crucial growth driver remains the Apple portfolio, which has increased its share of Redington's revenue to 31%, which is up from 29% year-on-year in the first half of the fiscal year. So the strategic focus on high growth geographies and premium partnership continues to drive the company's strong financial momentum. Next up, we have Manganese Ore India, and it has achieved an impressive set of production milestones, reinforcing its position as the country's largest manganese ore producer. So the company has posted its best ever October production since its inception, with manganese ore output surging by 9.1% year-on-year. So this upward trend is sustained, with production for the April to October period also up by a strong 8.5% compared to last year. Crucially, MOIL is not just focused on the current output, it is aggressively investing in its future. The company also registered its highest ever exploratory core drilling, reaching 57,275 meters during the first 7 months of the fiscal year. Turning now to the hospitality sector, where Indian Hotels Company, that is the IHCL, has reported robust growth for its second quarter. The company has seen its consolidated net profit soar by a significant 48.6%, which is nearly 49% year-over-year, hitting 285 crore rupees. So this was supported by an 11.8% rise in the revenue to 2,041 crore rupees. EBITDA has also showed strength, growing by 13.7% to 570 crore rupees, leading to a marginal but positive expansion in the margins to 27.9%. However, the core hotel segment has reported a more muted 7% growth. So revenue per available room or RevPAR contracted slightly, which the management has attributed to lower average room rates during this period. So the international portfolio also posted a mixed performance. Looking ahead, management has guided for a strong quarter, noting solid demand visibility for November and also the overall third quarter, indicating continued optimism for the peak travel season. Jubilant Pharmova is facing scrutiny today following a regulatory disclosure concerning its international manufacturing operations. So the US Food and Drug Administration, that is the US FDA, has concluded its audit of the company's Jubilant Hollister Tier General Partnership Contract Manufacturing Facility in Montreal, Canada. So the audit, which concluded on November 3, resulted in the FDA issuing 9 observations on Form 483. Now, while the company has yet to provide some specific details on the nature of the findings, a count of 9 observations is generally viewed as significant by the market, indicating potential deficiencies in adherence to good manufacturing practices. So, Montreal facility is a crucial unit, particularly within the company's sterile injectables and also contract manufacturing portfolio, serving the regulated, US market. Next up, we have Tata Consultancy, which has expanded its 18-year partnership with global electrification and automation leader ABB. Now, this new multi-year collaboration is centered on modernizing ABB's digital infrastructure worldwide, with a strong focus on leveraging artificial intelligence. Crucially, TCS will operationalize ABB's new future hosting model, a next-generation modular IT infrastructure. So this model is designed to streamline systems and also introduce an AI-powered zero OPS framework. So this means that more predictive operations, faster service of restoration, and also continuous security assurance. So all with minimal human intervention. Turning now to the FMCG sector, where Britannia Industries has posted strong Q2 results, significantly beating the analyst estimates on the bottom line. So the company's net profit has jumped an impressive 23.1% year-on-year to 654 crore rupees. So this robust profitability was driven by exceptional operational gains, with EBITDA rising 21.8%, which is nearly 22%. So this performance has expanded the operating margin to 19.7%, which is up substantially from 16.8% last year. And this marks a 5-quarter high for gross margins at 40.6%. So the top line showed steady, disciplined growth, with revenue rising 3.7% despite the residual impact of the GST implementation. Now, in corporate news, the company also, made a significant announcement appointing Rakshit Hargave, who is an industry veteran with experience at companies like HUL and Nestle, to a key leadership position as well. Now, we have Engineers India in focus after the company is set to deepen its global footprint with fresh orders and also strong momentum from the international markets. Ahead of its Q2 results next week, we spoke to Vartika Shukla, Chairman and Managing Director at Engineers India, on growing overseas order book and also expansion outlook. Let's have a look.
Especially with the Indian businesses coming globally, now the first question remains is for the industry as well. How are the inquiries coming in? Of course, we know that the Middle East is looking at renewable, non-renewable, and the entire ecosystem as well. But what is the channel checks? What the ground is suggesting?
So we are very upbeat in Engineers India Limited, and we are part of the ADIPEC, which is an annual event held here to showcase both the technologies, the potential of the conventional oil and gas sector, as well as technologies for a sustainable tomorrow. So we see a lot of traction here in looking at existing assets, looking for modernizing those, as well as new investments happening all across the value chain of hydrocarbons. We, as Engineers India, have an office here in Abu Dhabi. We work very closely with ADNOC and other stakeholders around the region, providing our engineering services. So it's a bright spot for us in terms of the potential it holds, and we have a sizable business and a sizable volume which we've grown over the last few years in this region.
That's pretty interesting, Vartika ma'am. First question is, of course, the international business. Now, how much of that, international business in terms of revenue is coming? If you break down the total revenue pie chart, and interestingly, for these international businesses, the company has gone there. Of course, we are expecting some good major oil and gas order announcements as well. So I would need your views on both of these questions.
Sure. So if you see our revenue for the last financial year, we did about 10% of our revenue from international operations, which is, and in absolute terms, it was the highest ever, sitting at about 371 crores. This year, if we look at the order inflow, which is about close to 4,000 crores in the first half of the year, in comparison to 8,200 for the last complete financial year, the inflow of this year's order is almost 40% from international operations. So we believe, and we have worked relentlessly towards growing the pillar of geographical outreach as one of our strategies for growth in the conventional space as well as other spaces. And these numbers actually showcase that we've done very well on positioning ourselves, not just here, but in other geographies all over the globe.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Are we looking at any major announcements coming with Engineers India and ADNOC going ahead? Because I think there is already an existing relationship.
Yes. So we are here for about 30 years, but the last few years have been significant, very exciting, and very upbeat. We have positioned ourselves in a very, strong manner in terms of offering our services. More so, last year we were upgraded to Tier 1 consultants, which is the top consultants on a global footprint. And we are in receipt, and we are already working on some projects in that, enhanced category of offering services. There are a lot of action happening in terms of engagements for other businesses as well. And as and when they come, we will definitely share with you.
That's pretty interesting. And what's the outlook for the domestic business overall? How's the client confidence looking like? Because India itself is going through a change in the oil and gas infra space as well because of modernization kicking in. So what is the outlook looking like for the domestic business?
So insofar as Engineers India goes for the domestic sector, we are very well poised. We are looking at the petrochemical expansions for most of our clients. And we see that refinery and petrochemicals are going to integrate more and more as we go, because standalone with the limitations of products and, several other factors, it becomes challenging to make such investments. So we are there in two propane dehydrogenation plants, which are coming up for the first time in the country. We are there in mega complexes for BPCL, for Indian Oil, for HRRL, looking at refinery and petrochemical integration. Some of the new technologies are getting commissioned. One was biofuels, one is residue upgradation. These are all very first kind of plants which have come up in India. So for Engineers India, on the domestic front, we are very excited, and we are very much in the thick of all investments. As we see going forward, the momentum of growth in the country is bound to happen. We see upward of 7% GDP growth. In petrochemical space, something like a 10% growth is definitely going to be there to meet the needs and the aspirations of our country. And we do see a lot of investments happening in the conventional space. But the notable thing about our organization in the last few years is we have not just looked at the refinery and petrochemicals. We have also looked at fertilizers. We've also looked in the space of chemicals. And we've also looked in the space of infrastructure. And today, we have the inflow of order from the conventional hydrocarbon space in this financial year, close to about 36%, while we have about 40% order inflow from infrastructure and about 15% from the fertilizer sector. So we've very well diversified our orders such that we are very well poised, and we are very much in the growth spurt that we are going to see in the near future.
Mr. Piyush Goyal's visit to New Zealand. Right now he is in Rotorua.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम किया आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think we are trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you are doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment. One administrator who is doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much for starting golf. We want to thank. Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you. I think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम किया आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think we are trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you are doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
NDTV Good Times is something that we're supremely excited about.
We just don't want to do live entertainment. We want to create experience for you.
And NDTV Good Times is one of the most marquee and iconic ideas that NDTV came up with.
मेरा जो रिश्ता है एनडीटीवी के साथ वो बहुत बहुत पुराना है.
सोनू निगम के लिए जोरदार तालियां.
The NDTV Profit has come a long way since it was relaunched.
Hello
And a very warm welcome. Polling in Bihar has begun, and the question in minds, not just in this crucial battleground state which loves its politics like very few states do, but also across the country, is who is likely to win on the 14th of November, and what are the critical issues that are playing themselves out on the ground here. To get a sense, we're at the Belghati village in Purnia, and I'm joined by 5 leading experts who've spent the last several days traveling the length and breadth of this state. I want to introduce first Dr. Surjit Bhalla, one of India's leading economists, member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, has been at the International Monetary Fund. He's been traveling, looking at it from a political and economic lens. Welcome. Thank you, sir. We have Amitabh Tiwari. Amitabh Tiwari is a former investment banker, comes from the state of Bihar, loves his politics, given up his suit, put on a kurta pajama. Welcome, Amitabh. We have Sanjeev Srivastava, one of India's most renowned political journalists, has traveled the length and breadth of this country, covering elections over 4 decades. We have Ajit Jha, who's a consulting editor at NDTV, comes from the state of Bihar, and therefore is not just looking at it from a research perspective, but also very, very passionate about what's happening in his home state. And since immigration and migration are such critical issues in this election, I have Dr. Neeraj Kaushal. She is a leading expert at the Columbia Population Center on migration, population and immigration, which really has been at the core of this election. I want to start by asking Dr. Bhalla about, this 10,000 rupee Jivika scheme that the Nitish Kumar government came up with in the run-up to this election. We were speaking to women in Purnia and elsewhere, and they're obviously very happy with the fact that they've got this money. Do you believe that this could potentially be a game changer, and is this the right way to do it? Give a grant of 10,000 rupee in the hope that you'll get their votes?
Well, first, could this be a game changer? No. Second, is this the right way to buy votes? No. Third, this has been the practice forever. So they have formalized the cash transfer, which is in many ways a more efficient system than of giving saris or computers or whatever you have. So in kind is not. But I think, we have to we as Indians and the government, etc., has to come to some kind of resolution, broad thinking on, this whole business of freebies has really gone too far, in my opinion. It's not the most efficient way to help the poor or to bring about development or even to bring about a change in your vote share. Now, I will conclude with that look, I don't think, and that was my first response, that this 10,000 is going to affect the vote. In other words, I think whatever would have been in its absence will happen now. And perhaps we can discuss.
You don't think it's a game changer? Because Amitabh Tiwari, we spoke to a lot of women who are sowing seeds for the winter crop in a farm in Purnia, and they were mighty chuffed with the fact that they'd got this 10,000 rupee. Some had bought sewing machines, some had bought some goats. They were very happy, and I asked them, will this impact your decision to vote? And they said, yes, we are being taken good care of. Women, Nari Shakti, seems to be at the core of the appeal of Chief Minister Nitish Kumar.
Yeah, essentially because when we ask that vote vibe, if you get the money, will you switch your vote from others or a Jan Suraj or a Mahagathbandhan to India, to NDA? 5.8% of voters said yes.
That's it.
So 6% is a big swing in an election when the margins were only 12,000 votes between the two alliances. And this 10,000 rupees is a series of steps which Nitish Kumar has taken. It's not come out of the blue. So you have had a cycle distribution scheme, you had a scholarship scheme, you have 28% of women in police in Bihar. The national average is 12 to 13%. You have 50% panchayats, you have a reservation for women. Correct. So this is seen as a series of steps in his attempt to empower women of the state of Bihar. That's one. Second is it's also tied to a hope of getting rupees 2 lakh in the future. Because if you have a good business plan, that's what the government is promising, then they will be facilitating a 2 lakh rupee worth loan from other banks. And when we asked questions as to what you have done with this money, this we asked when the money was transferred in the accounts of the people, 58% said we have started some kind of a small business. Correct? So, and to be fair to Nitish Kumar, he has not fallen in the trap of a Maharashtra or a MP or a Delhi or a Karnataka kind of model wherein you have to give a cash dole every month.
No, but Ajija, the state simply can't afford a monthly cash dole. Even here, the math suggests that the amount of payment that will be required for a monthly cash dole, Delhi announced it, they haven't implemented it. The state of Bihar, impoverished as it is, simply can't afford it. But you were speaking to women as well, and you saw those who received the money seem quite happy. And the contemporary wisdom out on the political street in Bihar at the moment seems to be that this potentially could be the singular biggest game changer, even though Professor Bhalla doesn't agree.
You know, I think as far as women are concerned, I have never seen such a big gender gap anywhere, wherever I have covered elections, in favor of the incumbent, and that also after 20 years, right? And most of the women I spoke to, and these women were basically from Dalit, extremely backward castes in different parts of Bihar. Most of them came out with a word, Nitish ji to hame swabhalambi bana diye. So the whole idea is that economically they have become independent, and most of these money was given in form of loan to start small businesses, chudi ka, to badi ka, so whatever small little businesses, and with 1% interest. And I heard that various assessments that they always return the money back to the banks where they take the money from. And the rate of it's a very good sort of return policy, and it has worked wonders. Whether it is as Amitabh was pointing out, the young women vote, the school goers, the cycle scheme that was started, if you remember, in his first term, and those girls have now grown into young women, and most of them, all of them seem completely. They find Nitish ji adorable and Prime Minister Modi, which is very interesting. So it's a jugalbandi between the two.
After 20 years, one would imagine that there'd be a certain level of anti-incumbency amongst voters, especially around the incumbent. But amongst women in particular, despite his ill health, Nitish Kumar seems to tower above everybody else. Is it also to do just with the fact that women in particular are concerned that if the RJD comes back to power, then there could be a return of Jungle Raj?
It's actually very interesting. In any other country, I mean, we saw elections in the United States where Biden was in ill health and he lost the election. And I was very surprised to see that here, Nitish ji's poor health, everybody is saying you can't leave an older person just because their health is poor. I have some things to say about this 10,000 rupees plan. I think from my perspective, if you look at the long-term view of things, it's so impressive to see that they've been given a very large sum, which is much more than, which is like 4 times the amount that was given in Maharashtra for a poorer state.
No, but that was monthly. This is a one-time grant.
This is a one-time, but when the women we spoke to, they are saying they have got 10,000. They're not saying they got 8,000 or 5,000 or 4,000. Whoever here and again, and we come across some women who haven't received it partly because they're not eligible or they don't have the paperwork. But whoever has received, so for them in the past, whenever the government gave, like Rajiv Gandhi said that only 15 paisa came. Here, the entire 100% has been transferred. Now, I think it will have, if anything, will have an impact from talking to people. This is something that seems to be a game changer. But is it a good scheme? Will it create entrepreneurs? Research very clearly shows that microfinance, when given to people, it increases the rate of entrepreneurship, businesship, from 5 to 7%. That's a tiny increase. For us to believe that everybody around us is an entrepreneur is kind of a big stretch. On the other hand, these women, it's not a loan. It's very clearly they're saying that it's a seed grant, which means it's a grant. So you take the money, do whatever you feel like with it, and those of you who are entrepreneurial can actually submit a plan, and then the bank will consider it. And, I haven't heard anybody except for one person saying that she will actually prepare a plan. Everybody is thinking of how to use it. So it's an efficient transfer of funds. Very efficient transfer of funds.
It's also very templatized.
But it's a bad scheme. It also means that what do we expect from the democracy in future? Would the future elections also involve such larger sums? And nobody, absolutely nobody, not even the opposition, is talking about what is the fiscal impact of it.
No, far from. Tejasvi Sanjeev Srivastava is promising 30,000 rupees, that you got 10,000 from Nitish Kumar, I'll give you 30,000 rupees. And Dr. Kaushal makes an important point. This then becomes a templatized SOP. All state elections, all governments just need to do this if this is your route back to power.
Absolutely, Rahul. So it's a very strange situation we are now seeing. So from Haryana, so it started with MP, then Karnataka bids, then Maharashtra was the last example, and now this. So all you have to do is, after 4 or 4.5 years of good governance, indifferent governance, bad governance, whatever, towards the last few weeks, you announce such schemes, and suddenly, and I disagree only on one bit with Surjit Bhalla, that I think it is a game changer. A lot of people, a lot of women, see, women, like Amitabh was saying, since the days of cycle distribution, good education, comparatively good law and order, then prohibition, they have veered towards Nitish over the years. But getting money is the first time for them in this amount, and it has made a change. The only interesting factor is, like Priyanka said, Priyanka Gandhi in one of our public meetings, you paise le lo, vote hame de dena. So, will the traditional RJD India bloc vote of the women, which is minorities and Yadav women, I suspect they will still take the money and vote where they want to.
But for many, this is 10,000 rupees in the hand versus 30,000 in the bush.
No, nobody is believing Tejasvi's job offers or 30,000. I think somewhere they are reconciled that he's just playing competitive populism. So he has to come across as one up on them. But his credibility on these promises right now, I don't think there are many takers on the ground.
Let's come to the second very critical issue, which is to do with the incumbent's health. And we saw how in the United States, the health of President Joe Biden became a knockout blow for him. Surjit Bhalla, here, as Dr. Kaushal touched upon, it seems to be a source of sympathy. He's by and large been okay, nuksan to nahi pahunchaya. It's not his health, his mental capacity, physical ability should really be, at least on the outside, a bigger issue than it is. It's causing a positive sympathy rather than becoming a big negative.
See, if you interpret the fact that I think the NDA is going to score a significant victory in this election. By significant, I mean 2/3 of the seats. Now, we are trying to look at causes, and that's why I said that, the 10,000 isn't even a game changer at all, because they would have got those votes anyway. So what does it mean to say anyway? Elections are basically to look at the alternatives. And I think no matter what you do, in most people's eyes, and that's what I believe, the alternative is not very palatable, is not very appealing. Nitish has got, now coming back to directly, has got a record of actually working, and you mentioned the bicycle scheme, so on and so forth. And, he's considered Uncle Nitish, and he's a good person. Now, the comparison Biden is not really very appropriate, because he was quite, in the case of Nitish, he's staying out of the public eye, making a speech, and he reads a speech, and you know that the decisions are a joint decision between Nitish and the BJP. So, and I think the BJP will end up getting more seats than Nitish. So that's just to prove, from my point of view, empirically, that it is neither the scheme of 10,000 rupees or Nitish's health is really at issue here. What is at issue here is what's the alternative?
So
And I think the alternative...
Can I just make one statement?
Yeah, Sanjay.
If Biden had a BJP apparatus backing him, it wouldn't have been an issue in US also. See, the opposition here is also equally ineffective in making this an issue because they are not sure whether it will be counterproductive, it will boomerang on them. But more than that, it is the way the BJP manages the entire ecosystem. I'll take this as my turn and complete this bit. See, so we were there at a Nitish rally at Triveniganj a couple of days back. I was pretty impressed the way he spoke, made people raise their hands and everything. But it was all so monitored. Once he got down on the stage, we shouted his name, one of my fellow travelers who knew him very well. He looked, there was a faint glint of recognition also, but he didn't stop. So this kind of management, no taking of phone calls, no speaking to anybody, even the manifesto release, 30 seconds, open, come, shut the gates and go back. So nothing. So who could have done that in US? So, and again, the Republicans just hounded here, both Congress, RGD, everybody is a little tentative. कि भाई संस्कारों के खिलाफ नहीं जाए.
It's a very uniquely Indian construct, Amitabh Tiwari. The fact that you've got somebody who's clearly not all there. Yeah, it is true he's doing 4 or 5 sabhas. He reads out from a script. But this is not the Nitish Kumar that all of us know from 20 years ago. And yet his health is not attacked because there's a concern, which seems to be true, that this may actually generate sympathy. The Indian culture of not disrespecting someone who's now unwell and actually saying, एक बार और इतने साल किया एक मौका दे के देखते हैं. Amitabh.
Yeah, see, essentially, he's been here for 20 years and he's done good work, significant good work. Correct? When people compare Lalu's era with Nitish Kumar's era, even
no, but good work is relative. Good work is relative to where Bihar began from as a base.
Correct.
When you compare Bihar at the moment with other states, it has the lowest per capita income even at this moment.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's always been there. So people make two comparisons. One, what other states have become and what Bihar was 20 years back. So when they compare with other states, of course, there is still a lot to be done. When they compare with Bihar of 2005, a lot has been achieved. See, again, what we are discussing is that he is now a senior citizen, comparatively. Correct. Also, the number of youth population is high, but the number of youth voting population is lower because 0 to 18 cannot vote. So 30 plus voters who have seen his work have sympathy for him, and the youth who have not seen his work perhaps or have not seen the earlier work and have no other base to compare may be looking for change, but their numbers are smaller. They're only 25% of the voting population. 30 plus is 75% of the voting population. This culture thing. And the RJD Congress are not attacking because I think somewhere in their mind, their only hope now is that Nitish is not made the CM by BJP and Nitish again comes back to Mahagathbandhan to become CM.
Do you think that's possible? We were with Pappu Yadav yesterday, Ajija, and he said that there's an open offer. Aap dekh lena, ye banayenge nahi CM. Nitish Kumar will come back with the RJD. Far from thinking of him as a liability, they're still trying to woo him and win him over to their side. It's the most fascinating business of political somersaults, which don't seem to have a negative rub-on this guy.
Yeah, that's a good point, what you pointed out, that the fact that he's a Dalbadlu Chacha, as everyone calls him, is not seen as negative. The idea is कि Nitish रहेंगे तो बिहार का विकास होगा. That is associated with him, number one. Number two, the fact that we did not mention, when Nitish came, the first thing that he did, just like Yogi Adityanath in UP, the crime rate just fell down. So for women, that thing, that security, कि 6 बजे के बाद जब अंधेरा होता है, तो I can go out and nothing happens to me. That sort of, makes him, that's why he's big favorite for women. And the third I found out, which was very funny, a lot of people told me भारत में you see the typical thing is जब बेटा बाप को गाली देता है तो people start hating the बेटा कि भाई आपके लिए इतना किए. So Prashant Kishore, he is the one who's attacking Nitish left, right and center. So many of the people told me घर में रखते थे इसको नीतीश कुमार और अब ये जो है रोज गाली देता है उनको. ये कोई तमीज है बात करने का?
Typically be a knockout blow in any other state. I mean, if, especially in a country like the United States where you're based at the moment, if this was to happen, it would not even lead to the candidate being allowed to stand. Here, it's actually creating sympathy for the incumbent chief minister.
Yeah, part of it is also, imagine a situation where BJP was in the opposition and not an ally of Nitish. It would have been a very different scenario. They would have talked about his health. They would have talked about his mental health. So I think there is a cultural difference, but there is also that BJP would have gone really against.
So why do you think RJD is not doing it?
RJD is not doing it, but another thing that that Nitish Kumar has done, he has created this very fine balance in this state. For instance, he has kept the BJP's communal politics at bay, and he has kept RJD's caste politics at bay. So in that sense, many people actually think that he's bringing that balance. So there is a sympathy for him on many counts. One of this being, the balance that he's created, the law and order thing that they have. And RJD is probably not very well equipped. They are not very well, they haven't planned this very well. They have, their response, BJP's response to this 10,000 scheme might have been another Revdi. Like, PM Modi has said, "Main Revdi nahi," he was against Revdis for a very long time. This 10,000 scheme, it looks like a Revdi, it tastes like a Revdi, it is presented as a Revdi, and it is also accepted as a Revdi. But no, there's a competitive welfareism that we see. So it's kind of very sad that, people of Bihar look at politics now as what are they going to get from various political parties. Earlier, Nitish had started this conversation which was about, he'll create roads and bring electricity and education. But now seems to be the focus in terms of what are you going to get personally.
Sure. Let's spend a moment on why the opposition hasn't made a bigger fight for it. For a long time, it seemed in the 2020 election that there was anti-incumbents. You could feel it on the surface. This is COVID, migrants coming back, Ajija. This time, A, on the surface, the anti-incumbency seems lesser. And B, the Mahagathbandhan battle never really came together. Very few joint appearances. Rahul Gandhi staying out of it after his Vote Adhikar Yatra for a long time during the holiday season. Tejasvi campaigning, but he's a one-man show. For some reason, they simply haven't been able to bring the opposition campaign together and take it to a climax at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. The Jugalbandi that you have between Prime Minister Modi and Nitish Kumar, you see that completely missing in the Mahagathbandhan. During the Voter Adhikar rally, all of us were surprised, and there was a buzz all around that not only Tejasvi and, Rahul Gandhi, but also Dipankar Bhattacharya, Mukesh Sahni were going around. But after that, Rahul Gandhi totally absent from the campaign. He only came back recently, number one. And number two, the fight between the two sides. The friendly fights are still going on in 12 constituencies, when last time they had lost with only 12,700 votes. So if you have 12 seats, straight away you give the 12 seats to the NDA, number one. Number two, not even once have they campaigned together after the Vote Adhikar rally, seriously. Whereas, if you remember Amit Shah's, he took a meeting with the BJP leaders. He pointed out, इस बार हम BJP के लिए campaign नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम campaign कर रहे हैं NDA के लिए. That, I think, in a coalition sends a very positive signal, which these people have not.
No, but look at how Prashant Kishore has made a fight for it. Now, no matter what he gets, Amitabh Tiwari at the end of it, that's a different matter. His is a new party. But he's really, over the last 3 years, slogged physical effort, mental effort. For some reason, Tejasvi, who's got everything to win and nothing to lose, hasn't put in the same kind of physical effort. He hasn't done the yards in the way that a complete outsider like Prashant Kishore has.
Because Tejasvi is a typical politician. He became active only 3 to 6 months before, or he becomes active only 3 to 6 months before the elections. Actually, if you see whatever the Mahagathbandhan is raising as issues, some of those issues have been raised vociferously by Prashant Kishore's party, and they have copied it from Prashant Kishore. The issues on corruption with regard to ministers in NDA government has been raised by Prashant Kishore. The Mahagathbandhan has not raised it. The issues on education, health, unemployment, migration. So somehow the opposition is playing typical politics of staying away from hardcore door-to-door politics for 4.5 years, coming on the scene when the elections arrive. And of course, there is a lack of coherence in the campaign. Even 3 months ago, when I was here in August end and September, NDA had one poster, common poster across Bihar. Left Nitish, right Prime Minister Modi, some slogan, and NDA Sarkar. Rozgar Lagatar, NDA Sarkar. Across Bihar, even today, you will get Tejasvi Sarkar as posters of Mahagathbandhan. There is no Mahagathbandhan Sarkar poster. So there is a complete lack of coherence in the campaign and significant research. When unemployment is an issue, migration is an issue, how will you solve it? When there is a serious question about the credibility of Lalu Yadav's family as having solutions to problems or being able to take Bihar to a new level, you need actual tangible solutions.
No, but Sanjeev Srivastava, it was said that in 2020, Tejasvi was too early for him. He wasn't fully baked. In terms of his political cycle and journey, this is when he's fully baked, or he should be fully baked, and far from having progressed. Political wisdom at this moment suggests he's actually regressed as a leader. How can that even be possible, and why is it happening in your view?
So that's Tejasvi's personality also, to some extent we should understand. He is, while I don't agree to the BJP description of him as a dynast, but the fact of the matter is that he is a dynast. He has been brought up in comfort and certain easy life. So that kind of hunger, despite his best efforts, he's addressing 15 rallies, but somewhere he has his pat. He knows if he doesn't become the chief minister, he'll become leader of the opposition. So he'll be one pole of the power always in Bihar, at least in near future and now. So, and also you have to sympathize with him. While on the one side you have a galaxy of Mr. Modi to Amit Shah to Nitish Kumar to Lallan Singh to Samrat Chaudhary to Kushwaha and Chirag Paswan, here it's virtually except for Mukesh Sahni.
I don't buy that. Look at Hemant Soren in Jharkhand. A one-man army gave a mighty machine a run for its money.
Akhilesh, a one-man army virtually. But still, the face of the campaign here, whether we like it or not, has willy-nilly become Tejasvi with no support from Rahul. Even Rahul's support wouldn't have mattered much. It's nice to criticize for the lack of it. But in the end, it is the simple, if you take a paper, just jot down all the casts, do the maths, numbers, we know the outcome.
No,
so
also one is just the cast and the and the numbers. Neeraj Kaushal, the other fact is that it's an uneven contest. I was, on a flight when I was coming in. C.R. Patil and his people were on the flight, and he's a very senior union minister. He's been given one particular area, a few constituencies. He's camping there just to make them win. The Delhi CM is here. They're all coming in. It's a mighty machine, arguably the strongest election machine ever assembled in this country, up against a ragtag coalition that can't seem to come together.
I think that's the real problem. Again and again we see that the India coalition, while they have a lot of groups, they are never able to come together, and they're not able to actually put their entire machinery behind one person, support behind one person. Caste politics no doubt dominates the state, but I think economics and progress matters. That's what we've seen since 2005. Somehow or the other, the voters in this state have been able to keep the extreme forces out, and my hope is that these, although I don't like the 10,000 rupees that is given, instead of which I think will be taking away money from other schemes. One thing about universal scheme, which in a way it is that it goes beyond caste politics. So it seems like Nitish has kind of created a constituency across caste groups among women. And so that seems to me the only redeeming factor in these elections. And
Surjit Bhalla wants to make a point.
Now, I want to come back to this dynastic politics, which I think is an important X factor, if you will, whatever you want to call it, in behind the scenes. So who, not only is he a dynast, his partner is the biggest dynast. And I think we will underestimate what's happening in India if we don't recognize that days of dynastic politics are over. People don't like it. So when you have, in the Mahagathbandhan, the two leading dynasts in the country, people rebel and revolt. So therefore, that is why, forget this 10,000. I really think it's a red herring. It's really,
So aapke liye 10,000 rupees is pocket change, but for the poor people, it seems to really make a material difference.
This was so I'll answer the following way. All the time there is, including on this trip, the caste system in Bihar leading this, that. And I keep asking, look, every politician knows that caste is important. So what they do, they will field the person of the caste over there and they will appeal to caste. So everybody's doing it. So therefore it means nothing. People are not voting on the basis of caste. If that was so simple, then you would have the results a very different way. And you're forgetting that the in-between, the non-caste people are much more. In the olden days, maybe it was important, but 2025, with drones flying around, and you think, and people know about this, don't underestimate, there's no longer an uneducated younger population, okay? So they all know what's going on.
So
and therefore,
I would disagree.
Harping on caste,
with all
I think
respect to Surjit, on three things. See, just like Nitish's health is an issue amongst chattering classes and political pundits, on the ground I have not seen one voter during last 1 week talking about Nitish's health. Similarly, I have not met one voter talking about, I described Tejasvi as a dynast in terms of his personality traits and why he's not giving it maybe his 100%. But not one voter we have met, not just in this trip, but in most of our trips who talk about dynasts, whether it's Akhilesh or Tejasvi or Rahul or whoever. But the chattering classes, and there may be some resentment, it doesn't come to surface. So, and the caste system is like, again, Surjit feels very strongly on this, but I think the caste system in reference to Bihar is really cast in stone. It is the final moment of reckoning, just when they enter the polling booth. I think suddenly उनको अपना गोत्र सारी caste और सारी गणित याद आ जाएगी. I'm just hoping the younger lot doesn't.
I completely disagree with that.
Please, better obviously about Bihar. That's my perception.
Let's take Nitish Kumar, right? He comes from the Kurmi caste, whose vote percentage is 2.49%, and he's been chief minister for 20 years. Jaiprakash Narayan, who created the biggest revolution in Bihar, came from the caste community, whose vote percentage is less than 2%. People like Madhu Leme and George Fernandes used to win and beat Bhumiyars in Muzaffarpur and areas like that. So I think this caste factor is made too much of. This election, Rahul, is basically around two different axes.
They were supported by powerful castes. All these examples.
But
JP never won an election.
Let me just make a point. This election is around two different axes. The generational axis, the older voters versus the younger voters, and the gender axis, the male versus the female. And this whole election, I feel, why the NDA has a little advantage is that the gender axis sort of neutralizes the anti-incumbency created by the generational axis.
See, essentially, on 105 seats out of 243, the same caste community has been winning the last three elections. 105. On 113 more seats, the same caste community has won 2 of the last 3 elections. So on 218 out of 243 seats, एक ही caste का वर्चस्व है. irrespective of party. तो कास्ट का एक रोल है, क्योंकि एक ही कास्ट 218 सीटों पे डोमिनेट करता है irrespective of party.
Okay, I want to now segue towards the issue of migration. A lot of people, young people working in other parts of the country, have come back at this moment to Bihar because of the Chhat Puja. Many are staying back. Tejaswi and Prashant Kishore hope that these are people who have seen what's happening elsewhere. They will go back to their families and explain that things in Bihar are not the way they are elsewhere, and therefore vote beyond caste lines. Is the opposition being too optimistic that outsiders will go back to their villages and play a role in mobilizing public opinion?
I think they will mobilize public opinion, but they are optimistic in the sense that it will be in favor of them. I think they're going to be more in favor of BJP, because they think that the contrast some of the states that they're coming from, or the national narrative of India doing so well. So they attribute a lot of them to the BJP, and therefore they would influence in support of the
How
BJP.
do you suggest the polity should try and deal with the issue of migration? I mean, there is a lack of employment opportunities, scarcity of industries, which is why these young people travel outside. How should the government, whichever one gets sworn in, be dealing with this?
This is the best thing that has happened to this state, migration of workers, for several reasons.
It's the best thing or the worst thing?
I think it's the best thing.
Why?
Because one, remittances, which is you earn double the money outside of the state and send remittances. So what we don't see in the GDP and other figures is the remittances that come that improves the level of living. But much beyond that is that you have exposure to another culture, another place, another level of development. How do you copy the systems? Bihar does not have to reinvent the wheel. They can actually copy other states, what has worked in other places, the value of education. So there's a lot of research that shows that migrant workers actually is not just the remittances, but how they change attitudes. They change attitudes towards politics, they change attitudes toward healthcare, education, political awareness. So the range of things that they do, governments will have to probably worry about why are so many migrants going, but for the people of Bihar, this is really the best thing that is happening, that they are bringing a lot of energy from outside.
Amitabh Tiwari, is there any hope of migrants acting as a youth bulge on polling day, or do you think this is just fanciful notions that look good on a strategy deck but not necessarily on the ground?
No, see, essentially, if you see the Jan Swaraj party, there is I would say an undercurrent which is very, very difficult to measure, especially amongst the youth and the migrants, these two categories of people. And many migrants have come back with this hope and desire that they are going to vote for Jan Swaraj, because they might not then need to go out of state and work. Ma'am is right in the sense that when you go out, you get a better perspective, and it's like learning from the best practices across the state, and when you come back, you try to imbibe that in the society you are living. Now these two are going to be the big game change or big kingmakers sort of voters. Very, very difficult to gauge which way these two.
Ajija, does Prashant Kishore have a hope? He says arsh or farsh, either the ceiling or the floor. Is it more likely the ceiling or the floor, you think?
I don't know in terms of number of seats, I can never figure out. But I think he's going to get a certain percentage of vote that is going to be critical, because the fact is that his party is the only party which is contesting in almost all the seats -4, right? So as a result, he's going to get. Number two, the social media campaign, he is number one, and therefore, जो migrants आ रहे हैं, most of the migrants I have talked to, they told me they are either going to vote for Prashant Kishore, or among the Muslim migrants, I found a lot of migrants pointed out they have come all the way from Panipat and places like that, and they want to vote for Owaisi, which I found very interesting. And some of them told me कि हम वोट देंगे तेज रफ्तार को. So I said तेज रफ्तार कौन है? So they meant Tejaswi. So among the migrants, you get a different kind of sort of profile.
But as I was speaking, Sanjeev, to some young people, they described themselves an interesting dynamic playing out. They've come from outside, they have their own ideas on what they think the state needs. They go back and they talk to their parents, and their elders tell them, "नहीं यहाँ पे तो ऐसे पढ़ता है," which is essentially that along the lines of caste. And they're saying we're trying to convince our elders, the elders are trying to convince them. That's happening in the build-up to polling. It'll be interesting to see on the day of polling which way that dynamic ultimately pans out.
You are absolutely right. It will be the polling day and the results day when we'll truly understand the impact of Prashant Kishore. Like I said, I saw nobody talking about the health of Nitish Kumar, nobody talking about Danest. I haven't frankly come across in my last 6-7 days people talking much about Prashant Kishore. Maybe we are talking to the wrong set of people. Maybe we are in the wrong region. But again, from a distance, Prashant Kishore looked much bigger than while we are coming closer and seeing things. He doesn't.
He looks big on social media, you think? Not so much on the ground, because the digital impressions are way out. Interviews with him or his reels, videos, off the charts. The question is, will it translate into votes?
Not in this election, not many votes, but I do think that he might end up getting upwards of 10 seats. So
How many?
Upwards of 10. His ceiling is 10, or I'm out, or whatever. But I think it's very, look, all of us know Prashant Kishore. He's been a major election player. I will reveal, one commentator said, one interviewee said that, listen, he knows more about the election, politics, and economy than anybody else, which I happen to agree with, certainly in this election. Second, to what extent is Prashant playing the long game?
But he's an impatient man. He's in a hurry to get
but
things
he's
done.
also young.
Of course.
And especially since we were talking about how age might be playing a part in this. So, 5 years is not that big a distance. So I think that's his motivation. He's certainly now not an election strategist. He is a politician running for election. And I think regardless of how well or badly the media describes him, his performance, I think he's a player. And
But do you think him not contesting himself was a big disservice? Because every client he advised as a consultant, he said, fight, you have to fight. It's the 101, without this there's no hope. And when it came to making the choice for himself, he opted out.
Yeah, I've thought about that just like you have, as to why. Now, part of it could be that he's really wanting to create a party, not a one-person party. So that's what often happens, and we've seen that.
They all say this, and then we end up with Kejriwal.
Yes, and I was going to mention, Kejriwal wanted to create a party, created a party, but really was quite obsessed with himself. This Prashant Kishore doesn't want to fall into that part. So
You're being very charitable towards him.
So I think, he's an election strategist. He studied elections. So I think I'm not speaking on this with as much conviction as I speak on caste not being a factor. So I think, but it is intriguing. I will give him the benefit of the doubt.
What I feel that Prashant Kishore has a major impact in this election in terms of the agenda of the election. He's the one who created the jobs, the migration, the corruption, decline in education and decline in health. These 5 issues he's hammered for the last several months. Tejaswi has picked it up, and now you find even the NDA is picking it up and finding out ways. For example, in their manifesto, they have 1 crore, right? Let's say for in terms of government jobs. Then they talk about
1 crore is employment.
Yeah, so
Government
jobs,
plus,
because unemployment is an agenda, therefore they are saying they'll create 1 crore employment. So in terms of agenda, he had a big impact.
But I'm very intrigued by the fact, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
By the fact that the Jan Swaraj party does not have a manifesto of its own. But how many jobs it's going to create? How it is going to create? First of all, is not contested. He could have contested from any seat.
You're a strategist also. Why do you think he didn't contest?
He is caught between his image of a politician and a strategist. He wants to get something out of this election, either as a politician or as a strategist. So arsh pe ya farsh pe, 0 to 125, correct? Nitish will not be CM, JDU will not get 25 seats. So he hopes that one of his
Punch comes out to be true.
Comes out to
and
be
then
true.
he says, I told you so.
Caught between these two images.
Okay.
And he wants to keep both the images alive.
You know, we've had a very high quality discussion. Lots of interesting insights also gleaned through travel, which is always better and more robust than just sitting and typing away on a keypad by looking at Excel sheets. I thank all of you for having taken out the time and joining us on NDTV Battleground. Really appreciate you joining us in this rustic village setting. It's very green. You know, the fact that it's so green, and in those makhana farms, people jumping in, you know, pulling out the makhanas, you actually get a sense of how there's very little else happening. I mean, there is no industry. The only, while of course you can build it out as a super...
Contrast it with the AQI of Delhi.
हाँ यही बेटर है सर, यही रह जाते हैं मंजी पे सो जाते हैं. So much better than going back to polluted Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this broadcast. Lots of sharp insights. We'll slip into a break. We'll come back on the other side. Stay with us for our continuing coverage of NDTV Election Battleground.
Mr. Piyush Goyal's visit to New Zealand. Right now he is in Rosswell.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में ही प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think we are trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you are doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
we unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment. One administrator who is doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in the recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much, you're starting golf. We want to thank
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank
I
you.
think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में ही प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
NDTV Good Times is something that we're supremely excited about.
We just don't want to do live entertainment. We want to create experience for you.
And NDTV Good Times is one of the most marquee and iconic ideas that NDTV came up with.
मेरा जो रिश्ता है एनडीटीवी के साथ वो बहुत बहुत पुराना है।
सोनू निगम के लिए जोरदार तालियां.
The NDTV Profit has come a long way since it was relaunched.
I hope you're watching NDTV Profit a lot.
Absolutely, you can come to my office and you can see.
Neeraj, Tamanna and the entire Profit team is also working super hard on building a world-class financial news product, and therefore it's good that you're watching, and I hope you can see some churn and improvement as well.
No, absolutely. I think the NDTV Profit has come a long way since it was relaunched, and so I'm pretty pleased that what we require for the investor is a correct advice, correct information, and in a right way.
Mr. Piyush Goyal visit to New Zealand. Right now he is in Rosswell.
Agarwal Packers and Movers Limited. Man with the cap. Not 300, 300, 300.
Ajay Srivastava, MD of Dimensions Corporate Finance Services, with us on the show. Ajay, great having you as always. Thanks so much for joining in. You know, it's been a barrage of corporate conversations today because the earnings season is thick and fast. But I think the key point that both Tamanna and me think, Ajay, is that the earnings season is not panning out half as bad as people feared. If anything, it's actually turning out to be slightly better for most analysts. For you as well?
I think by and large, yes. Most of the companies have done decently well. I won't say exceptionally well, but decently well in terms of what they have achieved. But, the key point to take away from here is a singular lack of investment by the Indian corporates. If you look at the cash flows of them, look at the capex and all, just see the trajectory is a horribly low number of capex out there. So yes, everybody's trying to cut costs, the advertising budgets are down, everybody is trying to see where we can put the margins in. So yes, cost compression has been a huge activity. It's not so much of sales, but what is visible is the sheer lack of investment by the Indian companies and for expansion, new areas and acquisition. I think that is standing out more and more if you look at the cash flows which come every 6 months. And you see the capex budget versus depreciation, in fact, even lower than depreciation. So you're not even replacing your assets, forget growth. So I think there's a very big concern flagging out is, yes, they can do this all temporarily, but are they really planning for any growth? And that doesn't show up in any of the cash flows.
That's a fair point, Ajay. Very good morning, Tamanna here as well.
Good morning, Tamanna.
Do you think that, and frankly, results maybe is a bit of a mixed bag. You have some which are complete dunces today and some which are doing great. But do you think that the FII inflows and the lack thereon is going to be a continuing pain point till this tariff issue is resolved?
It's not a pain point. I think it's a significant pointer to where the market should be and is right now. So, don't take it negatively that, okay, India's market cap is what? Less than 7% of the global market cap. So we shouldn't be expecting large sums of money either ways. But the fact remains that we are very good for PE investors because we allow them to come into very easily, which is a great thing for the country. So let's not just look at the FI investment. Let's look at the PE investment as well, which is sizable in this country. But the pointer is PEs are taking money out. The other bigger guys are taking money out. Institutional money is going out. We are the domestic buyers in it. So are we setting ourselves up for a continuous 2 to 3 years of underperformance? There can be spikes and ups and downs, but we already done 1.5 years of bad performance. Are we setting ourselves at a base which is so high that we will not make adequate returns to compensate our equity risk? I think that's a challenge here. More than the sheer number of investment, flows can go up and down. It's a sheer pointer that it's a one-way street at this point of time.
What do you think has given some comfort when you've looked at the corporate results so far, Ajay? Because most of it is out, especially the large caps and all of the sectors. Do you think consumption has been the bright spot? Is it banks? What have you liked?
I think autos have been exceptional. Okay. Definitely. They got the biggest boost from, of course, GST. Yeah. So autos has been absolutely exceptional in terms of their performance. And they're good companies by and large. So one shouldn't worry about them. And auto ancillary as well are doing reasonably well. Most of the companies are doing reasonably well. So I think auto as a segment has done remarkably well. Some of the new age companies are doing reasonably well in terms of getting their act together, of getting the profitability. So whether it's a delivery commerce company, whether it's other kind of companies, you're seeing very clear focus on profitability. So I think there we are seeing a very clear plus sign in terms of what's happening out there. Some of the newer companies have come up in engineering space, defense space. They have done very, very well, and I think growth is coming out of there. More importantly, I think some of the pharma companies, which are CDMO companies, which have been with the PE investors, they have done reasonably well. Their performance is exemplary, and 2 or 3 examples are very clear. So they had a long capex cycle. They're coming out of it. So I think buying this segments has been pretty good. So it's been a pretty decent bunch of returns, as I say, for select bunch of companies. But the broader, older Indian corporate, I think that's the one which is looking like so scared to do any investment altogether.
Thank you so much.
You have a good day.
Mr. Piyush Goyal's visit to New Zealand. Right now he's in Roswell.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment, one administrator who is doing more to lift the profile of Indian golf than anyone has in recent years.
All the top champions, the Tiger Woods, will all come from India in future.
It's great to be here. Golf is growing across the globe and here in India as well.
Whereas now the opportunities are increasing a lot. Thank you very much. You're starting golf. We want to thank.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
I think that's very, very important.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting.
Agarwal Packers and Movers Limited. Man with the cap. Not 300, 300, 300.
Hi, we're talking about Your Money Matters on NDTV Profit, and my name is Alex Matthew. Now, in the equity markets, the IPO market is something that has garnered a lot of attention recently, not least of which because a few eye-watering valuations have been proposed, and they've found buyers. In fact, some have gone so far as to say that you might need to check your glasses. But then be that as it may, the question is, if you are looking to invest in a company, what should the approach be? And if you are subscribing to these IPOs, what should your thought process be? Because you may not necessarily have all of the information that other people do, or maybe you're not spending enough time looking at that information. This is going to be an attempt to tell you what to look at, because there's a treasure trove of information available out there. Sameer Dalal of Natvarlal and Sons Stockbrokers is joining me now. He's a regular on the markets leg of the content that we bring you through the day. Sameer, thanks so much for taking the time. Let me ask you this. first of all, IPOs seemingly in India and everywhere in the world, but particularly in India, go through seasonality or cycles. Is that true? And what have you witnessed over the last many years?
Yeah, Alex. So thanks for having me on the show. And you're absolutely right. There is some amount of seasonality and cyclicality when it comes to IPOs, because IPOs generally come out when the markets are hot. And the reason for that is that the promoters then get good value, or the selling shareholders get good value for the stock that is being sold. Now, generally, IPOs are good for companies because it gives them capital to grow. But what's happening in the current situation is it's not a lot of growth capital that's being raised, but it's more of selling existing shareholders. Because in India now, the private equity market has become so big that a lot of these companies are getting their growth capital from private equity. And then what's happening is we are getting to buy these much later when a lot of the growth is captured already by these private equity investors. So I think that is something that is very important that we should look at, is something that who's the seller? Why are they selling? Is the money going to the company for growth? Is it going for debt repayment? Is it going for, just an exit of a promoter or existing shareholder? All of those things need to be looked at. And that is why I think there is something that we need to look at in IPOs in more detail than what we do look at. And the cyclicality will obviously be there given the fact that the markets are hot right now.
Okay, that's fair. And you've talked about a few things that I want to discuss over the course of this conversation. But Samir, just to draw a parallel that I think a lot of people will understand, would you say that it's kind of like a sugar cane that is going through the grinder, and when you're at the IPO level as a retail shareholder, what you're getting is perhaps the third run of the cane that has gone through the grinder? Would that be an apt analogy to make? You're not getting the fresh juice.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's exactly what I discussed, when I said the PE guys put in the money up front, right? Now the question is, are you getting it through the third grinder? Or are you getting it through the first grinder? That is up for debate based on individual companies. You can't just use a single brush and paint all IPOs alike. But largely, yes, that is what we are getting at this point of time. Also, what we are getting is we're getting this crushed cane at a price of, let's say, full price of cane. So, it kind of leaves eventually not a sweet, but a sour taste at, maybe going down the line. So that is something that we do need to look at. But yes, definitely, I agree with your point that we are getting something that has been squeezed out to some extent. But like I said, I can't say third time.
Okay. So one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation is because there was this entire debate about the Lenskart IPO. And as we're doing this conversation, we still don't know what the listing price is going to be. Who knows? The grey market premium or the suggestions are that it might just list at a premium. But the question is, are you looking at this from the right lens, Samir? Because these new age companies, because of the times that we're living in, are being pressured to show a profit. And that's what Lenskart did. Though it did not show that profit with organic activity. It sold mutual fund units, and there was a fixed deposit that was matured, and that resulted in the profit. And so as soon as there was a profit, Samir, people started using that as as a metric to judge them, to say the price to earnings is exorbitant. But then the argument that was made is that why don't you look at the revenue and use the price as a multiple of revenue? And if you do that, then it's not as expensive as certain other IPOs. How do you judge valuation?
Okay, so let's take Lenskart since we are discussing that. If I had to just value every company on price to revenue, then the opportunity that would turn up in the market for me to invest in would be far more than what Lenskart stands to offer, right? There are companies that have, I'll just give you an example. Dixon is trading at, their net margins are 2.5% net profit margins. So if I were to just purely value him on top line and top line growth, then I think Dixon could probably be a multiplier for here. So that's not the answer to the question that people are saying that how should we value this company. So there are a couple of metrics that I would like to look at when let's talk about Lenskart now that we look at. So top line growth is one of them. Top line growth is coming. Why? Because he's constantly increasing his reach. He's pricing better than a lot of the existing mom and pop stores and stealing some of their business. The market is expanding, yes. But at the moment, the question you got to look at is what is the market expanding at and what you're taking away from, I'll not say unorganized space, but mom and pop stores. Yeah, mom and pop stores are standing to be losers in this bargain. So can you continue this kind of growth endlessly? And even if you continue this growth, at some point, you've got to start upping your prices to be able to make money. Now, I like to say two factors that I look at in any company, and forget IPO. Across the board, every company that is there listed should have two parameters that everyone looks at. One, obviously, is growth. How much is the market opportunity and what you can do? But second is the ROE, the return on equity. If I am putting 200 crores to work or 500 crores to work or 1,000 crores to work, what am I getting back at the end of the day in that? Today, if someone tells me invest 1,000 crores and I can give you 6% return on that, would you go out and you have to take high risk for that? Would you go out and do that? Probably not, right? So what changes for a company like a Lenskart if he's not able to deliver profitability and he's not able to say that, look, 2 years from today, I will up my pricing so my EBITDAs will improve and my net profit will increase. Now, if you're going to do that and you value him 2 years down, at that point, what ROE will he generate at those higher price points and what will be his PE multiple at that point? So both these factors you got to look at. And I don't think he's going to be able to deliver anything significant. Now, if you just want to keep valuing him on sales, I mean, I believe sales is for vanity and profit is for sanity. So if you want to be on vanity, go for it.
That's a good line. That's a good line. And at 6%, you might as well put it in a fixed deposit, even though the taxation is not going to be as lucrative as the equity market is. But having said that, let's come to the brass tacks of it, Samir, therefore. The other factor to note is when you're going for an IPO, a lot of people go in for that listing pop, which has been harder to come by in the recent past because of the sugarcane analogy that we had. There's not enough juice left. And so from that perspective, you should be willing to hold it for years. But the point is that when you participate in these IPOs, because they're so overbid, you get a very small slice. So is it worth applying for an IPO in the first place? Or should you just wait for an opportunity to purchase these companies down the line whenever the opportunity presents itself?
So Alex, I would like to say I prefer the second strategy where we can buy it at a better price, knowing full well what we're doing and not working on a lottery system kind of thing. But sometimes you may not get that same opportunity again. I'm not saying you will not, but you may not. Now I'll give you, it's still early days, but NSDL, the IPO was at 800 rupees. This is a duopoly business, CDSL, NSDL. The stock is at about 1,120. Now, I would like to say I'd love to buy this stock at 800 rupees or even below, but I'm not sure I may get that opportunity again. So, like I said, you can't paint everything with a single brush. If there are certain companies which you think have great long-term growth, which are difficult to come by, which you may not, even in a market fall, you may not see too much erosion in the stock price because the operating leverages for these companies are very strong. The ROEs are exceptional. Then you go out and make the investment during the IPO time and hope for the allotment. But in general speaking, I think 90% of the IPOs, you could probably follow the second strategy where you wait for a market fall. Look, every few years you have a 10 to 15% correction and every 7 years you have a 40% correction if you go back into history and see. So over a period of time, identify which stocks you want. Wait for those corrections, you will get them, and then that's when you go ahead and buy. So I prefer the second strategy, Alex.
A quick question on ROE, since that's one of the key metrics that you've pointed to. And of course, again, here, there is no one single answer to this. It would depend on the industry and the company. But what would you be comfortable with? And if you can give us broad ranges for, say, a manufacturing company or a commodities company or an IT company or a services company.
So ideally, a 15% ROE would be something ideally that I would say is something I would like, because that means you're getting twice the return against putting your money in an FD, right? So 2x of that, 2x of your risk-free is a very good return. If you are able to generate ahead of that, it's exceptional. Now, ROE to me is something I use to determine what price to earning multiple or price to book value a stock should be assigned. Because the higher the ROE that you can generate, it means that your capital use is fantastic, right? Now, I'm not saying everything can be like lever gets an ROE of over 100%. And the reason is they don't do a lot of their own manufacturing. A lot of it is contract manufacturing. So they've not put in as much equity or capital, and they keep paying it out and they're making great amount of profit. So you don't assume something like that to trade at 100 times earnings and stuff like that. But yes, should these stocks trade at a premium to others? Absolutely, they should. And for me, 15% is good, 20% is excellent. If somebody is about 25%, now there are companies, you give them a slightly higher value and you assume that these higher valuation multiples could sustain as long as the entry barriers are very strong. Now, in the simple case of what we discussed, NSDL, which came for an IPO recently, entry barriers are very high. ROEs are excellent. This is a counter that one should stay invested in for the next 10 years. I think this could be a multi-bagger even from today. Even though the juice has been squeezed out, I think there's still a lot of juice left in that counter. I think the equity cult in India is only beginning. If you also have your dematerialization of insurance policies, this is going to be a huge upside. So everything has to be looked at individually.
Sure. Let's round this conversation off with a rapid fire. You're used to this, Samir. You know me. I like this segment, right? So I'll toss a few questions at you, and hopefully this will be beneficial to my viewers. And I'm just rambling on, right? So, in your opinion, the ideal number of stocks in a portfolio?
25.
The ideal allocation to each of these stocks, maximum?
At time of investment, 4%. But then if the stock does well, it can move up. But I would not like it to cross 10 to 15%.
Stop loss or no stop loss?
So fundamentals doesn't determine stop loss. But if the fundamentals change, exit at a loss.
Okay. How often should you churn your portfolio?
When you find a better idea there, which can generate better longer term returns than what you are existingly holding.
Okay. Loss-making entity but tremendous revenue growth, is that a deal breaker or an opportunity?
Again, needs to be looked at from the point of how much they can grow and how soon they can turn profitable. So I like QSR restaurants, QSR companies. I think they are not making too much money, but the opportunity ahead is so great, and the profitability that can come is so great. So I would say yes, you look at it, but you look at how long it will take to turn profit.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much, Samir, for taking the time. It's been a pleasure having you on this show.
Thank you very much, Alex.
All right, there you go. So that should give you some sense of how to approach the primary market. And as Samir pointed out, the opportunity will always be available to you in the secondary market if you miss the bus when the IPO is ongoing. And that might actually be a good thing for you. Now, moving from the equity market to something else entirely. And this has to do with inheritance from the lens of the woman. It's an important conversation to have, and I'm joined today by Tanya Apachu Kaul, who is lawyer and legal influencer. Tanya, thanks so much for taking the time, and appreciate that you've taken the time to speak to me about this. Do you think
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure entirely. Do you think that there's a lack of enough awareness about this? And specifically, from a legal perspective, is it important to understand the distinction between male inheritance and female inheritance?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of people are not aware that a male succession happens differently than female succession. And, usually in our culture, families don't really take the trouble to inform their daughters or make their daughters aware of what the law is, but the sons are proactively more aware of things. So I think there's a huge gap in awareness and education for women, especially when it comes to succession, because there is a lot of difference in the way daughters succeed.
About this, because by my understanding it would depend on which law you would fall under, and that, as things stand right now, because there is no uniform civil code, depends on your religion. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So succession depends on which religion you're from. Hindus have a codified law, which is the Hindu Succession Act. Muslims have their own personal laws. So Shias and Sunnis will inherit differently, slightly differently. Christians also have their own laws because they have the Indian Succession Act, but some parts like Daman and Diu, Goa, some Tamil Christians and Protestants, they inherit differently. They have their own laws. So it's a broad framework of laws, and it depends entirely on which religion you belong to.
Okay. Let's primarily deal with the Hindu Succession Act as well as the the Broad Succession Act, the Indian Succession Act. So let's first talk about the Hindu Succession Act. It would depend, by my understanding, Tanya, please correct me if I'm wrong, on whether or not you have an HUF, which is a Hindu undivided family, or not, right? And there are different rules that apply. Can you take us through the salient points?
So HUF is a different entity. Not every family has a HUF. It depends on whether they've created a HUF for their own family. And then we have the concept of ancestral property, which is very unique to Hindus, which is not there in any other law. So ancestral property is any property which is in the fourth generation. So it's come to you from the fourth generation. It has been undivided in your family, and all the family members are jointly enjoying it. There's no partition on paper. So that property is your ancestral property. So I think the biggest confusion, the biggest problem everybody has is they think that maybe their parents or their grandparents' property is their ancestral property, which is absolutely wrong. So that is specific. The HUF is specific, and ancestral property is very specific to Hindus. Also, the most important